How dare you!
Boys. It's all gone Pete Tong tonight. It's all gone horribly wrong. This was meant to be our first simulcast in ages. And last week, because of the weather, Scott had bad weather moving in. Joe couldn't spend all night. I think it was Joe. In fact, did I not hang out with you last week, Andy? And Jimmy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's right. Scott and Joe couldn't make it last week. So we put on a rebroadcast. Now, without getting into the details of how things work on the back end of TFR, you have a show set to live, or if you can't do it, you put it on rebroadcast. And the major thing you do is, the only thing you have to do, it's just one thing that I had to do, was I had 1 week to remember to set it to live again. I think I got that excited that we were going to be back on the camera. You get to see our cheeky little faces, or Spooky Andy's cheeky little face, my cheeky little face, Scott's cheeky little picture, and Joe Joseph, he will be here as the show goes on. But I want to apologise to everyone because, you ever get that, Scott? You're looking forward to something so much. So much so that you forget a vital part of the ingredients and it all goes wah, 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 instead of...
It's like, you know, when you're planning for the big wedding and you're planning for the big thing and then you forget to bring the cake. You know, it's that kind of thing. And, you know, look, man, it happens to the best of us. And look, hey.
And me.
I forgot too. Hey, I forgot too. Usually I remember these things as well. And I was, it slipped my mind as well. So, you live and you learn, Kev. You live and you learn.
I know. So what we're going to have to do is we're just going to have to forget that happened, reset, regroup, and get ready to go again. And we have got, as you can see, an extra Wookiee this week. Yes, we have got a new panelist for this week. We've got Spooky Andy coming to us all the way from Colorado, from his underground bunker. How you doing, Andy?
Good. How
Good,
are
man.
you guys?
I'm doing really well, man, but you know, you've had a heck of a week, and I thought to myself, we had such a blast last week, even though I forgot a moment ago. I thought, you know, why don't I ask Andy? I think it was yesterday. I said, why don't you come and hang out? We'll get into some good woo. It's the E-Beltane special on Freaky Friday. So I'm glad to have you back, man, because you've been bringing a lot of news to the show away from being on air. You bring a lot of links. You were the guy that cleared up the drone mystery. Although nobody out there in alternative media gives neither you or me any credit for that, Andy. No.
That's okay.
That's okay. We don't do it for that. But it's great to have you here, man. And I know you were tuned in last night when we had Jason on. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, that was awesome.
He's a good dude,
really
isn't he?
awesome.
He's a really good dude, man.
Yeah, I really dug that. That's kind of stuff I like looking into.
Yeah, I think that's more the angle I'm going to be taking from now on, you know. There's not much going on in the world, really, for me to cover, so I think I'll just get back into the woo for the time being. What do you think, Scott? I mean, it's not like there's anything really to cover out there.
No, there's absolutely nothing going on right now in the world that, you know. But hey, you know, Beltane, right? It's May Day, isn't it? And I was just reminded of that today, and yeah, it's one of those kind of interesting deals. Those old sort of pagan, how do you say, the echoes of pagan past. Yeah, the echoes of pagan past that still to this day are, you know, it's still permeating and being celebrated, which is very interesting. Very interesting. Some of those Beltane celebrations get pretty elaborate, pretty wild, man.
Yeah, usually we're pretty famous for the fire festival, Scott. But, you know, with nothing happening in the world this year, it's been a bit different, right? So yesterday I covered the fact that they had their first ever E-Beltane. We had one of the Beltane societies doing a bonfire, and this was like online. It was Beltane online, and it was bonfire. And we were checking out the live streams before we came live today, and it seems a bit more song and dance again, like we seen yesterday. No modest dancers. I didn't find anybody dancing about with bells and whistles, making fools of themselves. But no, it's a bit weird this year, because away from the rituals and the Wiccan and the pagan kind of aspects of it, notoriously over here in Europe, it's like protests. And this is one of the first years I can remember in the evening on May the 1st that we haven't had like pictures of fighting in Hamburg or down in Italy, or I suspect it probably would have been pretty tasty and fruity in France this year if the yellow vests had been allowed to stay on the streets. But all that's done now, so it's all these witches will be taking part in, would it be do you think e-covens are forming? Guys, do you think they're going to like this? This is going to be the new thing. We're moving into a new world, right?
Yeah.
Industries are having to change. So, you know, witches, Wiccans, wizards. Johnny King, we actually know a wizard, Scott. Can you believe that? Did you ever think you would know of a real wizard? But they're going to have to change their ways as well, right? So, what do you think, guys? I'll come to you first, Scotty. Think you're going to have a e-coven?
An e-coven.
You like that?
Hey, you know, I guess. I don't see why you couldn't, right? It's all about intent, right? So, I mean, look, our friend, the spiritual warrior, Bill Bean, he does a lot of his work online, right? He does prayers and a lot of his work over video chat, you know? So Why wouldn't you be able to do something like that? Like I said, it's all about intent. And if you have a bunch of people getting together, putting the same intent into something, I don't see how it would be any different online than it is in person. So yeah, I think you're going to see you're going to see a lot more of that. Like you said, Kev, the E-Coven.
The E-Coven, Andy, what do you think? You're gonna get some wizardry online now, and I'm not talking about World of Warcraft. You know, it would change days, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like,
I'm just apologising to the network here, folks. I'm sitting scooping up some humble pie and explaining what an absolute backward person I am.
if they are listening, just know that he freaked out the second he realized he did not set it up right away.
Not good. Not good.
Please don't be mad at him because it's not his fault. But anyway, all this stuff through the internet, I meant a lot of people are doing church service over online. I know I have a couple friends that have been doing their church services online so that way, they can actually still, attend church, I guess. So I'm not sure how that works because I'm not doing that, but I have friends that are doing it. And if I know those two people are doing it, then I'm sure a lot of other people are. And it means that a lot more people will be doing more of the same. But also, there's something with the, intent over online. I mean, we are all literally quantumly connected. So I think that, sending, your positive energies or whatever through your intentions and actions online can be something that someone can digest in real time, I think. I don't know.
That's the reason I was thinking about it, Andy, because I was thinking to myself the energies that are involved. And obviously you have magic circles and you see the people dancing in circles and things like that. And then I started to think, well, is it going to be totally different if people are apart? Because in a way, a call like this, we're all paying each other attention. I'd like to think we're all holding each other's attention, and we're all conscious of one another. And I wonder if that act alone, just the fact we are kind of connecting, albeit remotely, I still think you might get that same otherworldly, other dimensionally powerful manifestation happening. Maybe not the same way, but I still think there's a connection going on. I do. That's what really got me deeply kind of thinking about it. E-Beltane. Bit weird, right?
I think so. And you've seen a lot of the experiments that were done on, say, Coast to Coast AM, right? With a lot of mass thought experiments where Nori, I think even Art Bell did some too, where they called on the listeners to focus on one thing and see if they could manifest it. Like, think about making it rain in a specific location and have all of the listeners like focus their intent on making it rain in that location, and they actually got some pretty interesting results.
Hooray!
Good to see y'all. Yo Kev, Scotty and Spooky. Let's all sit back, relax and pack a fatty. Let's get a little freaky. Brown chicken, brown cow.
Brown. Woo. I love how Brian says, woo. He was not happy about coming over to this KBS2 slum, as he calls it, Scotty. Not happy at all. But now that we're semi off the naughty step, I've left Brian liaising with Google now that we're in the reapply process. So he agreed. He agreed. Since we're trying to reapply over there, he'll grace us with his presence. Ain't we lucky, eh?
Nice.
I'd really love to get Greta reading out the super chats. That would be quite funny.
An AI Greta.
The real one's bad enough.
He just gave us $4.99. How dare you?
How dare you?
Hey, it won't be too much longer, and you probably could do something like that with the way technology is going with like deep faking voices, and you've just
Yep.
fed in Greta's voice into a AI system, and then it could end up generating her voice, and next thing you know, hey, we probably could have Greta actually reading out our super chats. So,
And for anyone listening to Scott tonight, sounds nice, good audio. You know, Scotty, tell them what's bringing everyone that audio. Tell them what's doing all of that. What's cleverly working away in the background blindly to make you sound like the professional host that you are.
so I am utilizing some very, very interesting AI technology. I just I've plugged in Kev. I'm part of the beast system now. Blah, blah, blah.
Did you go to the lace? Have you gone full lace, Scott?
No, but I was doing some well, I had come across some very interesting information the other day that NVIDIA, which is really known for their video cards and video graphics and stuff like that. Well, a lot of people don't realize that they're also heavily invested in AI and that whole realm. They released a bit of technology called RTX voice, which it completely eliminates all background noise from your microphone using AI. They fed in massive amounts of data sets of examples of background noise, and it just magically filters it out. And right now, I'm not even using a noise gate to cut out background noise. I have my fan on behind me on high because it's really hot in my room, and I usually turn my fan off whenever I do a broadcast or anything like that. But just to test it out today, I have the fan going on high. I have my window open, so like you can hear cars driving by and all of that stuff. My computer is usually very noisy, so I have to use my noise gate to cut that out. And just magically, with the power of AI, this RTX voice thing has removed all of that. It's amazing. It's some amazing technology, I must say.
You know how misunderstood AI is, Scott. There'll be people crawling under their sofas right now thinking you've sold out. You've merged with the beast. But no, all joking aside, I'd seen this. I'd seen them advertising it. I've got an RTX card, but I've not tried it, I must admit. And I liked the sound of it when it was talking about it. But now that I hear it, I mean, you think about that. It's like adjusting in real time on the fly for noise in the background for Scott. I don't know. It just shows you, Andy, you work with the stuff, right? I mean, little things like that. I mean, we're getting new software programs, things coming along all the time. And a lot of them, despite all of the fears out there, a lot of them, they're really good. They do make things better. And they ain't going to take over the world. Scott's graphics card and his little hack he's got there, it's not gonna doom us, right?
No, I don't think so. I meant like I tell people about like some of the programming that I've written, and they're like, "What's the point of that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's needed. Like, if someone was willing to pay me to do the job, then obviously they needed it. You know, I meant I'm not working in the field where we're trying to take over the world or anything, you know what I mean? Like, but I have done things that have taken people's jobs, but also trained those same people that took those jobs so that they could run those machines. So I'm just saying, maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
And the interesting thing about this technology, you know, this RTX voice stuff, is that NVIDIA really never had any intention of releasing it, at least in the short term. There was a small development team within the company that was working on it. And due to the circumstance that we're in now, where people are having to stay home.
Scott. I like it. The circumstance.
The circumstance.
Nice.
due to the circumstance that we're in, where people have to work from home and do schooling from home and all of that, there's this massive uptick now in video conferencing and just like conference calls that are having to take place online. And so NVIDIA decided, hey, let's just go ahead and drop this and see if people can get any use out of it. And it's still in very crude. I really good, with this, and this is still just an alpha phase. It's not even in beta or anything. This was just kind of rushed out by them, and just to see the improvements on this from here on out, I think is going to be amazing. I know a lot of professional microphone companies are kind of because I think it's going to get to the point to where this RTX voice software will be able to make a really, really crappy headset microphone sound like a professional grade, high end piece of equipment. The more data that they feed in it to where it can refine your voice and maybe cut out more background noise and things like that. I mean, I'm just using a very simple Blue Snowball podcasting microphone, which sounds pretty decent, but I don't know, man.
They're good mics, dude. They are good mics. I like them.
Yeah.
They got a good kind of rep, you know what I mean? I had one of them when I first started, and for anyone that is out there maybe wanting to start out, you could do a lot worse than the Blue Snowball, the Blue Yeti, anything of that range, and it's not too pricey. And it's USB, plug and play. You don't need any fancy soundboard. Away you go, get yourself a little program like Scott's talking about, and you could sound like Clyde Lewis, George Norrie, our very own Chris Geo. And one day when I get this soundboard figured out, I'll sound like that as well. And then all I'll need then is content, and we'll be absolutely jamming. Absolutely. So Scott,
you'll have plenty of that, dude. If you wait long enough, there's going to be a lot of ghost stories happening really soon.
Oh, good. Oh, you know me with ghost stories. And Scott, what do you make of this one, right? We brought on Jason, first Paranormal, yesterday, and he lives down in the south of England. Now, within 30 minutes drive of him, there's a place called Dartmoor. Now, I had never heard of this, and you have to appreciate that Dartmoor's somewhere I slept out in the open when I was in the army. Kind of know parts of it like the back of my hand, up and down the hills. And then Jason informed me yesterday, and what's weirder is this was news to him, but there's something called the Sphinx of Dartmoor. And it's this kind of collection gathering, like a pile of stones. That's obviously it's quite a structure, Scott. It's not the Sphinx, obviously, right? But the thing is, after the show we done a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about Mandelas and things turning up on timelines and things that weren't there, and now new things are there, I find it a bit strange that a guy that lives locally to that area and is absolutely steeped in the woo, and yet he only found out about this place a couple of weeks ago. And he only found out about it because he was researching something else. That not seem weird to you, dude?
Yeah, I mean,
That's weird, right? That's like you finding out about Stull Cemetery and never knowing it had been there. And then finding out it's this weird kind of place that, and people talking about it. It's like a mad monument and there's been things happening. Never heard of it. What's that all about? Weird, huh?
I mean, especially for somebody like you said who does the research and like knows about all this stuff, and then just for something so
if it was somebody that isn't looking at the woo or I don't know, but I could totally understand. Oh, I had no idea that was there. I'm not interested in that kind of thing. But
something so blatant and so obvious that it's strange that they would never have heard of that. I mean, but I guess you can say there are just some things like that where you're like, man, I didn't know, like I always see examples where people are like, man, I've lived here for years and never really, knew about this place or that place or something like that.
Check that out. I mean, that's a sizable old place, right?
It'd be
What?
kind of hard to not know about, though, don't you
Yeah,
think? I meant, like,
That's what I was to say.
seems a little bit timeline skippy-ish to
That's
me.
the only thing. When I heard Jason saying, "Listen, this was the first I'd heard of it," I didn't hear anything he said for about 5 minutes after that because my mind just went, "Hang on, then. Here's a dude that knows the area, and now an object of woo has just landed there." You know what I mean? And I bet people are screaming at their they're screaming at their monitor right now, Scott, going, "You befool, Baker. It's always been there." And I'm not arguing with people that know it's always been there, but I find it strange somebody into this didn't know it.
It would be like remember James Swagger?
Oh, dude. Did he even exist? He was one of my favorite people in the world, man, and he just disappeared.
I
Yeah,
know.
what happened to him?
I
We
really
don't know
worry about what happened to James Swagger. I don't say that lightly.
Yeah, I have my thoughts on what might have happened.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything to do with the information he was talking about. But,
no.
James had an interesting life, you know. And
Yeah.
I just think,
But
damn,
yeah,
what a dude.
Yeah, it would be like somebody on the caliber of James Swagger, like not knowing about
Stonehenge.
Exactly. It'd be like him going, "Oh, I've never heard of Stonehenge." You'd be like, "Whoa, what?"
And I've had Hugh Newman on the show. I've had Maria Wheatley, Ben Emlyn Jones. He talks about everything, including you know megaliths. I can't understand how none of those people have mentioned something like this either. Good story attached to it, witches and things like that, you know.
We might have to see if Mr. Christopher Everard has heard of this place.
Yeah, it's the Vixen Tour on Dartmoor, they call it. The Sphinx of Dartmoor as well. Yeah.
It does have kind of a Sphinx.
I see
sort
where
of-
they're coming from. Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a Sphinxy kind of head feel to it there. Paradoily, it's great, right? But,
Yeah.
but yeah. Yeah, pretty cool. Do you think, though, maybe, I mean, imagine when they built the Sphinx, that would have been one giant big rock to start with. It probably would have been like that, but gargantuanly bigger. And then they just chiseled it down and built into it, right?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I it's not like I don't think so. I'm 100% sure that's not how that happened. But you know, I wasn't there 50,000 years ago when they made it, I guess, you know. So
you think they built it from the ground up?
I think it's made out of poured like vitrified stone.
You reckon?
Same with the like all those structures. Like there's just no way. There's just no way that you weren't using vitrified, you know, or not vitrified, I'm sorry. Like molten rock. There's just no way.
Yeah,
Some of the stuff in the slabs is like you can tell that it was a polished slab. I don't know if you guys know anything about granite. There's like ways to polish stone by putting two pieces of stone together and letting them orbit on one another, and they'll flatten each other out. But some of that stuff, there's just no way. I mean, like, I know I'm not the only one that thinks that, you know. But there's been a lot of speculation over the years that they had used, you know, pouring techniques to make the stones, and the reason why they look the way they do on the outside and they're bowed in, like at the seams, is because of the wear. But they might have been perfectly smooth at one point in time. So, I mean, that's you know, it's all of it's theory. You know what I mean? Like, for all we know, the Egyptians weren't the people that were there. You know, they could have just come in and had said, "Hey, yeah, we built all this stuff." We don't know that. We weren't there. So it's all speculation. You know, it's all a theory.
And I had mentioned Christopher Everard earlier, and you know he talks about that the use of like ancient concrete kind of techniques of a lot of this stuff being poured in. A lot of the hieroglyphs and stuff actually being some kind of like pressed relief instead of being chiseled in. That it was actually like almost like a wet clay of some kind, and that they pressed a lot of this into it and then let it dry. Which is pretty fascinating as well. So
I mean, like, I just look at it like this, man. Like, I've worked with a lot of raw materials, doing manufacturing and stuff over the years, and I've, tried to put myself in the shoes of those that were there doing that at one point in time, and for people to go out of their way to dumb it down and say that, oh yeah, well, they were using brass chisels, and dude, I'm sorry, like, there's just no way. And they weren't using slave labor to move blocks of granite and stuff like that. There's just no way, dude. I'm sure they had to do that with some of it, but the majority of it had to have been poured. I mean, like, that's some pretty, and it makes deep woo. Look,
I mean, look, you had the ancient Sumerians, and then how did they write their cuneiform on tablets? Well, it was clay that they pressed the cuneiform into and then let the tablets dry. So I mean, that concept was already there. They knew about that thing of using a soft, sort of clay that they know would harden into a rock and then be a permanent thing. So why wouldn't the Egyptians use something along the same lines? And, I'm with you. They always just go to, oh, they used, sticks and chicken bones to just whittle away and carve at things. And it's like, dude, that's totally inefficient.
It's very belittling to the people of that time to assume those type of things, because they're going to do it to about us in 5,000 years, but they're just going to find a bunch of plastic crap. They're going to be like, what the heck are these guys doing, Yeah,
but I mean, look, I don't think they give these ancient civilizations like their engineers and the people who think about how to make, like you said, when you're into fabrication or building things and stuff like that, you're trying to complete a task in the most efficient and easy way possible. And the way that they describe a lot of this stuff is like in the most, like they did it in the most inefficient, hard way possible. Like, oh, we had thousands of slaves with a rope dragging a block, when that they could have figured out how to move that thing in a much more efficient manner, So yeah,
well,
I don't buy it.
I think a lot of science goes in the face of like actual hard facts and reality. Like, not all, I'm just saying, like, some of the speculative science of saying, hey, we figured out how to do this this way.
Pointing out that both are one in the...
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that. We are going to be going live to the network in a moment. I thought we were good to go there. Keep going, Andy. Sorry, man. I thought it was good to go,
it's
man.
All good. I forgot what I was saying.
Oh, no. See, I've gone and done it again. See, I go and mess up the rebro, Scott. I don't know.
I got it. So this is just my theory on how people come to judgment on things from the past. Is they figure out a way that they could do it easily, and they say, this is the easiest way to do it, this is how it was done. And they just they mic drop some shenanigans and walk away. They don't really give you the full story. They just go, I know, because I figured it out, and if I can figure it out, someone from the past should know. But they're not giving those people from the past that had a totally different upbringing, a totally different version of mathematics and science and actual, like, know-how. They're not giving them the credit that they deserve. For all we know, like, they could be, like, I always talk about cymatics and stuff like that because it's something I'm into, but for all we know, maybe they were using sound to cut blocks in half with, like, sound waves, and using sound to levitate blocks. I'm not saying that's the thing that they're doing. That's just something I think would be cool. You know what I mean? And I think other people think that's cool, so they associate like, well, maybe they did it like that. But I'm telling you right now, from someone that's like worked with like raw materials like molten metals and rock and done stuff in stone and all this kind of stuff, I'm telling you right now, those were poured. Those had to have been poured like into either a predetermined like a cell that would hold the block while it cured, or they put a cell up around the spot where they wanted it poured, like they do when they make dams and stuff like that. It's just a wall, a retaining wall. And I'm telling you, man, it's just the easiest way for someone engineered mind to think of this is that was wet at one point in time, or liquid, and it was cured like cement or some type of other substance, because it's really no different, and it became a structure. Like it's literally way easier than trying to figure out, well, where did the trees come from to make dowels to roll things on? Where did all the stone come from to make the parts that are unrecognizable from the area? Like, I'm just talking about like in Egypt, I guess, but like I'm 100% sure that at some point in time there was a bunch of sea-bearing individuals that were going around helping each other and doing, bartering and trading and saying, hey, it looks like you're having a hard time with your Adobe hut. Would you like us to help you figure out a way to make this a little easier?
Stand by,
and
Andy.
That's
stand
what
by.
they came up with.
Here we go.
Yeah, you're good.
Are you true? Can you woo, 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 woo? They don't run this like we do. Can you woo, woo, woo? Is it true? Is it deja vu? Is it you? Can I come through? Come and kick it with you? Can we woo, woo, woo? Snip a little ooh, ooh. Don't really matter cause you're still my boo, boo. We can slide out, ride out, back to my hideout.
How dare you?
Haha! Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this later version of Freaky Friday right here on TFRlive.com, Truth Frequency Radio. And I need to give a big, huge, massive shout out to the man behind the network, Chris Geo. If it wasn't for him, it would have been all a disaster tonight, but never fear. The Woo crew are here. We've been talking for, 40 odd minutes now. We've got into ancient technology. So I think we're just going to pick up the conversation and you'll soon catch up with us, folks, because we're talking pyramids. Andy was really giving us his technical adding his technical nous to the kind of conversation we're having here about how they built things, the way they built things. And you were talking about how people back in that time, Andy, they probably don't get the credit, I think I heard you saying. I was trying to get everything connected on the back end, but, I don't think people in the past get half the credit, and I don't think we know half of the cycles that have gone before, so who knows how many civilizations have come and gone, right? But when you were talking about doing the whole building the pyramids and all these monuments, but yeah, that's definitely something that's got to be one of the options on the table. However they done it, get it into liquid form, pour it, shape it. I don't know how this would work either, because I don't know if it would turn to powder. I don't know if it's viable, but you hear people talking about sound as well. And if you hit that resonant frequency, maybe, I know it sounds weird, how can rock turn into putty? But if you make things just jiggle about a bit quicker, maybe there's a way then you can manipulate it.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, you see examples of this in nature, right? And it's called liquefaction. And it usually happens during an earthquake where, you have this shaking and you have this sort of resonant sort of frequency that is occurring in the ground, and it causes the rock and the dirt underneath to all of a sudden start flowing like liquid, and it comes up out of and stuff like that.
There's aren't those called like dirt spout or sand spouts? It happens in Missouri a lot.
Yeah, look
like
at that.
They
You've
have
got a car.
Earthquakes and the sand just blows out of like ports and stuff all over like they make what are those called, fissures in the dirt, and then out of nowhere, like it's just like a powder, like poof, will just shoot up out of the ground, like in the middle of a field.
Now,
Look
some
at
of the more spectacular sort of examples of liquefaction that I seen was during the earthquake in Japan that caused the tsunami and all of that. I mean, that was a 9.0 earthquake, and I saw some videos of people out there and the
Pavement
ground
going up and down.
yeah, the pavement's going up and down, and it's like opening up, and you see liquid. It looks like mud just gushing out of these cracks, and it's the liquefaction that is occurring underneath them.
Yep.
The earthquake has essentially liquefied everything, and it's
Well, that's only part of it, though. Is what a lot of what you're seeing is there's like a water table, like anywhere you're at, there's like a water table where there's an amount of water in the crust of the earth where if it's been disrupted, it can either come up to the surface or create a what is that called, a sinkhole. So if you have an earthquake somewhere where you have a very shallow water table, like somewhere coastal, you'll see a lot of that because the water table's so low that if you have all this ground cover, meaning like asphalt, concrete, buildings, like any type of structural, stuff that's around the way, if you see those type of that type of structure and you were to have that type of like quick earth movement, you'd have a lot of liquefaction of the ground around you, and it can happen just so fast.
So what? I mean, I'm looking at a car here that's half buried.
I think that's from a mudslide, dude.
New Zealand. It's claiming liquefaction. Video of
Really?
liquefaction, Britannica. Yep.
Wow.
On June at exactly 11:43 a.m., thanks to a pocket watch that went down along with 2/3 of the town and over 2,000 people.
I'll put that back so we can hear it again.
On June 7th, 1692, the Jamaican city of Port Royal, a notorious pirate haven, sank into its own harbor. This disaster, or blessing depending on who you ask, was caused by liquefaction of the ground following a major earthquake. And we know it happened at exactly 11:43 a.m. thanks to a pocket watch that went down along with 2/3 of the town and over 2,000 people.
Wow.
Liquefaction.
So a full town just gone.
Hey, do you think
I watched a show about that pirate town.
Do you think it was a bunch of tossers that caught off the boat that just sunk into the ground waist high? They got their blouse dirty.
That's crazy, man. I mean, I'd heard of that. That what was the name of that place there again? They said Port something.
Port Royal.
Yeah, that comes up in one of the theories when it comes to Oak Island. Pirate treasure from there, because when the pirates on that place, that was obviously one of their strongholds, and they were talking about how a number of pirates had a shared treasure vault, and this vault that they had built on this place, it was supposed to have been, well, probably only would have been rivaled by Oak Island with the engineering and all the booby traps and things that are in there.
I got a question for you, Kevin, because I've thought about this. Do you think that Oak Island was way above sea level at one point in time?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about rising seas. I'm talking about like that whole. There was like a big structure, right? And that thing could have had like some type of liquefaction, and sunk.
Yeah, and well, let's think about that. Let's explore that then, right? Because you've got Oak Island. For anyone that doesn't know, these dudes, they found a pulley and a bit of dug ground back in 1795. Started digging, got 10 feet down, found a layer of logs, and kept on digging. Got as far as they could dig, and that was it. They had to go and get miners in to help. And here we are in 2020, we're still trying to get down there. So a big hole in the ground, right? So like Andy's saying here, let's think about that. Was there a big structure at one point? Maybe they weren't trying to hide anything at all. Maybe they were trying to retrieve stuff in the first place.
To me, you know what that place sounds like? And like, this is just, I'm going to paddle off on over to Speculation Island right now. To me, that place sounds like it wasn't something like a stronghold, for something like that. It sounds to me like they were doing some type of mining, and I mean, from everything I've heard, it just sounds like they had some type of mining operation going on, and they found something they wanted, and they kept digging down and down and down and down, and that was before that land was as low as it is, to the point where when whatever could have happened, meaning, water rushing in around the place, or, a amount of sea level rising up around it or whatever, made that whole entire, whatever that is, that structure either sink or the water just came up onto it. Because the way they're explaining it, I can tell you right now that I don't think that was built underwater, and there's way too much stuff that's under the water table, like we were just talking about, for that to be something that would be engineered the way that it's engineered. Like, it would have had to have been either done in
now you're not giving people of that time the credit
No.
they're due.
No. I'm not finished.
See, no.
I don't think that they were. I don't think they were the type of people back in the day to build. I can't remember what that's called when you put up artificial walls to keep water out long enough to do the job, and then you take the, like how they bury certain types of oil rigging platform offshore.
You'd build a cofferdam like you build now.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't think they did cofferdams back then.
Well, that means
that was just above ground.
Because the only way you can really gauge is down at the bay. And have you watched this season of Oak Island?
No, I haven't caught up with any of it. I used to be really into all that stuff, but I just
see.
haven't been
From what they're
up.
turning up now, it suggests that I think it suggests that sea levels were lower.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because, like you say, the holding back of water a couple hundred years ago. Not saying it isn't doable. I'm not saying that, but I think the engineering that you can see from the bay upwards and then into the stone drains and things like that, I think it would have been a lot.
So how deep do they think it is? Or how deep have they dug where it's actually like still wet and they've measured?
What do you mean? What, the money pit or down at the bay?
Like, how deep have they gone underwater and still been finding stuff? Like, under the water level.
They pushed it out. I don't know the exact amount. I can show you a picture of it. Not good for radio right now, but they pushed out, I would say, at one point they said during high tide, this would be 7 feet underwater.
Okay, then I'm 100% sure that this thing was probably made around the same time that a lot of the stuff, like, off the coast of Japan was found. Like, have you ever heard of the underwater structures off the coast of Japan?
Yep.
I think they're like 200 feet underwater.
Yeah, that's probably more likely some continental shift, something like that,
I mean, like, we have, shelf displacement all the time through our crust. I mean, like, it wouldn't be something out of the ordinary for, let's just say,
I don't think
area
that. I don't know,
but
I mean, that's fair enough, right? That's fair enough. But then you've got all of the kind of markers and the Masonic kind of cross on the island. You've got the swamp. You've got the stuff that they've turned up that's been scientifically tested. You've got wood coming up from the bottom of the money pit that goes back to the mid-1700s. So that's 150 odd feet down. So 150 odd feet down, and it's hand cut. So what the heck were they doing 150 feet down using wood from 1750 odd, Scott?
I think another thing that would suggest, that this was a really, really crazy kind of engineering feat that they pulled off was the fact that they actually engineered traps into it to cause water to flood in, which would suggest that they were building it underwater already, that they knew, if they were building with the intention of knowing that somebody was going to penetrate a certain area and that it would trigger water to flood in. Right. So they could
have built an artificial cofferdam around the place before they built it and then removed it.
Well, you've
Yeah,
got.
so
Well,
out of your-
let me add another enigma into the mix then, because Mannerus in the chat he watches this as well, and the swamp, right? Really weird, and it was weird before they'd started investigating it. So they've dredged it now, and they've got in a geologist, and they've got in all these send things away for testing everything else. And they, part of the swamp, it's a cobbled kind of paving. It's like a I suppose you could call it a key or just a pathway. And they got the guy to come in, the expert dude, and he's absolutely dumbfounded because he's talking about the glacial shifts and how things happen and the way rocks get deposited and everything else. And you can see all of what should be there, and then like trapped in between where these stones are, you've got like organic matter. And they date the organic matter, and you're talking about the money pit, the finding of that. They say 1795, the McGinnises found it. Well, the dating came back from this piece of wood, organic material, when it was the stone was put on top, one of these hand-laid stones, to give them a rough kind of time, right? I get it. I see where they're coming from. So they date that. They get a date from like the 12th or 13th century. Like way back in time. And then you've got tools turning up as well, which, for me, I've said to Anne all along, I think there's been a load of different things happen at Oak Island. I even think at some point the Vikings might have been there as well. That sounds a bit weird, right? I know it sounds a bit weird, but I think there's been several different things going on there. I don't know if it was a known location for something, but it looks like, and it appears with that swamp the way it is, best working theory they've got, whatever ship came in there, it might have been 2 islands to begin with. You sink the ship, you burn it, and then obviously over time, bada bing, bada boom. And even in the swamp itself, they're finding like oak trees that would have been growing the same as the rest of Oak Island, and they've already started to grow, so there wasn't any water there to begin with. So that adds to the whole man-made swamp thing, you know? And then you think, well, what the heck? If somebody's sinking a ship there and they're doing all that, and they have found burnt wood, just to add to the kind of evidence, what the heck's been going on there, you know? It's crazy. Absolutely. It's like what we do here, Scotty. The digger they deep down, or the deeper they dig down, sorry, instead of getting closer to answers, it's just more bloody questions. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. I think the island was used by many different groups, different sort of people that just ended up there. It just probably was one of these kind of well-known stopping places, or maybe a port of some kind for people traveling, traveling west, across the sea, and they just ended up on Oak Island. And there probably was multiple groups of people who set up camp there, who did business there, or whatever. Whatever they were doing, who knows. But it wasn't just like one group. It wasn't just like one group of people that we're talking about at the island. And so that's why you're seeing so many different artifacts that range, in age from, 1700s to like the 12th century and all of this stuff. So,
Whoa. Andy, you're going to have to mute up, man. Something horrendous has happened. There it is. Must be the air conditioning. Come on again, look. Look, it happened. Did you hear that, Scott?
It's been on. I don't know how I'll mute up.
Did you hear that, Scotty?
yeah. It just, it almost it sounded like his mic just boosted up. I think that's what happened. It just kind of boosted the background noise.
Skype probably thought, you know what? I can hear an AC in the background. Let's get that into the call as well, because it's Skype. It's good like that. I'm telling you.
Skype must destroy all.
Yeah, you sent me a picture there, Andy. I'll try and bring it up. Yeah, that there.
It's the equilateral triangle.
Yep. Sure is. And the one on Oak Island just happens to have a collection of stones. Again, these place stones right where the eye should be. And I don't know, man. I think the Here's what I think, right? I think we had Vikings there. And then I think later on in time, however they came into the possession of knowledge, the Templars found out about the Vikings going there. And they eventually went there as well, whether it was to either steal what was there or maybe deposit something. I don't know. And who knows who else? Was there people there before the Vikings? I don't know. I reckon there's been a lot of stuff going on there now. The big question is then, is there anything still to find? I don't know. You know, you've had that many search
I bet there
attempts.
is.
You know
Yeah,
what's
so-
funny though? Like thousands of years from now, there's going to be a civilization of people that go to Oak Island, and they're going to find the remains of what they're doing right now. You know, finding the tools of them digging there, and they're like, "What's this? Oh my gosh, this dates back to the 2000s." And
Someone found an iPod.
yeah, it'll just another layer of activity on the island. You know what I mean? And so it's very interesting. I don't know, man.
It's nuts, isn't it? I mean, they've got bones out. I think the bones came up from, what, about 100 feet down or something? One of them traces back to Middle Eastern genetics, I think, origin, and the other one European. So, a European and a Middle Eastern bones down the money pit off the side of Canada. Go figure. You know what I mean?
That would totally suggest to me some Templar activity.
Yeah,
you know,
at some point, yeah.
You've got the
But
Templars.
then you've got the coconut fibers, right? And that kind of suggests maybe people coming up from the Caribbean, because they used the coconut fibers on to kind of pack the French drains down at the cove, so that no debris would get in, like a filter, a natural filter. And they turn up the coconut hairs as well. And I tell you, they were talking about something interesting last week. They were showing you old pictures of the island. And there was these massive, and I mean, oak trees are massive anyway, right? But these things were ridiculous, guys. They were like totally out of place. And they can't remember when they got taken down. But when you look at them in amongst all the other trees, it's almost as if somebody's planted a different type of tree there, so that it almost grows head and shoulders above the other ones and stands out. And I haven't seen the results yet, but they've got like an acorn. One of the people that used to live there before, they turned up an acorn out of the storm drain, and they think that came from the big tree. And when the guy looked at it, the guy's like, no, the leaf that comes with it, that ain't from a Canadian oak tree. Again, they reckon it came from some European type of oak tree. It's crazy. Like I say, you get more questions than answers, man.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. What you're right. The more they
Mannerus is like an aficionado. He's even telling us there's lime in the coconut as well.
Mm.
There you go.
They write that song on that island.
So yeah, if I could get to Oak Island, oh man, that would be the bucket list for sure. Oak Island, big time.
My wild speculative woo that I like to stick to on Oak Island is that the Ark of the Covenant is at the bottom.
You think so? It's a Portuguese. That's it. It's a Portuguese oak tree. Mannerus is reminding me in the chat room. Yes, indeed.
And Mannerus is on the Oak Island trail, isn't he?
There's another thing. There's another way of looking at it as well, though. I mean, as opposed to keeping people from getting to some vast treasure, what if it's something that dangerous? They just wanted to get rid of it in the most isolated, kind of weird thing. We'll just get rid of it down there. Nobody can touch this. Nobody can have this. This is information that nobody can see.
What if it's a vampire's tomb?
Oh, dude. What if it's the guy out of Lost, Desmond, pressing the button every 7 minutes? Remember that? That was a brilliant program, man. Brilliant program. That was always what I used to say to Anne. I never got into Oak Island to start with. I was into Lost more, and I always used to say, telling you, when they get to the bottom of the hole, Desmond's going to be sitting there pressing a button, and if he doesn't get pressed the button, the whole world's going to stop. So just stop digging the hole.
What if they get to the bottom and it's a dybbuk box.
You see? This is what I'm talking about, Scott. It might literally be Beelzebub himself. And there's a story about that. One of the guys, Dan Heskey, I think his name is, he went to work there decades ago, still there now. And one day, it was Dan, I can't remember his name now. Anne would kill me. But his boss, anyway, he just passed away recently. They had taken to, like, dowsing. Say I use metal rods, things like that. So he told Dan Heskey, take a shot of that. He's like, you're mad. I'm not going to take a shot of that. So he takes a shot of it, and then obviously gets a pull on them, pulls down. And it was in this book I was listening to, and the guy says that the energy that he felt entering him that day, it was absolutely insane. And it knocked him literally wrong, to the point where they ended up having to go back to the house. And Dan Blankenship, that's the dude's name. And they went back to the house, and in the end up, the Blankenship, the boss guy, had to call the local hospital. And the guy Heskey, or Hensky his name is, he ended up getting sectioned. He had a psychotic episode. Eventually made it back to the island, And he said, though, from that time on, any time he was, like, working and digging and like, helping Dan, doing what they were doing, as opposed to the feeling he used to get before, where, like, they were striving to get treasure and stuff like that. It was exciting. He said every shovel I would be taking it almost felt like I was digging one spade or one shovel or one bucket closer to hell, you know? I was sitting thinking, whoa.
He had Oak Island PTSD.
Well, I'll tell you, dude. Something happened to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if there's a UFO at the bottom of it?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Underground base. Full of Templars.
Yeah, there's a dome underneath there. It's full of a bunch of Templars.
Dumb Templars.
Dumbass Templars.
It's just, well, Johnny Whistle's in here. He would not be happy. But no, I don't know. It's I don't know. I think the money pit's a very apt name for it, for the amount of money that's been poured in to try and dig it out over the years. But I wouldn't mind seeing the dudes that have it now getting somewhere, because I've said this before. They're not in it for the money. They're already millionaires. One of them's got a vineyard, a power company. It's not about that. It's the adventure. It's the history. And they've built a museum there. They show everything off. They've really they've left the island in a far better state than when they came to it. And I think they're doing it for genuine reasons, you know, as opposed to chasing the money, as opposed to being literal gold diggers. And I think that I like that aspect about it. It kind of adds to the whole story, I think. It always seems to have been families that are associated with the place. I mean, you call it Oak Island PTSD there, but there's certainly a bug that people get, Andy. You know, most people that ended up going there to have a look, when you read the book, not many of them went away, you know, determined to come back or poured their life into it. You had a famous stunt man at one point and his wife. They were like daredevils, quite famous in the US. So they moved over there, you know. He tragically lost his life doing it. It's like you must get that bug. It's like the gold rush, right? But it's the Oak Island rush.
Yeah. It's one of those things to where whatever is down there seems just within grasp, but you can never quite get it. So it just kind of sucks you in, and then you end up, you know, 1 year becomes 5, then 5 years becomes 10, then 10 years becomes 20, and next thing you know, like you're pouring your whole life into this thing, and you know that's just what happens. And no, like you said, I think the current guys that are doing the work there, I think they might actually pull it off. You know, I think technology and the stuff that we have available now. And like you said, they were already millionaires. They already have the resources to pour into it. And it's not like they're going to go bankrupt doing this, because
they were actually ready to walk away, Scott. They were ready to walk away at the end of season 1. Because I don't really remember this part of it. I was a late comer, as Anne keeps reminding me. But there was a bit of a controversy about a coin that they found. Turned out the coin itself, when they got it valued and things, it wasn't that valuable, but it was interesting. But Rick and Marty Lagina, the two brothers, they were absolutely convinced that the producer or one of the team had kind of planked that there. And in the book, I mean, I've only got the author to go by, and he says that it was pretty much 50-50, you know, because if it hadn't been for the producer, Kevin Burns, convincing them that there was no shenanigans going on, they were ready for walking, you know. And I had no idea that had gone on until I'd read the book. I was like, wow. But yeah, they are doing a good job. And even the lots of land where people lived, there's a guy called Samuel Adams. He ex-slave, turned into fighting for the Brits in the war. And then he ended up on Oak Island, got himself a plot of land, ended up with about several plots of land, right, for a moneyless cabbage farmer. Ends up one of the most influential people in Nova Scotia. And they've just started, like, excavating his old house. And lo and behold, they find an anomaly with the ground penetrating radar. So they get permission, obviously, and they've got the architect, the archaeologist. I was going to say architect, they're not building anything. So they're scraping away, and literally towards the end of the last episode they're finding a hole, and they've got a camera down, and it looks like some passageway the dude had under his house. So whether he found something, who knows, but he got his money from somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, just the mystery continues to deepen.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Big time, dude. Big time. Yeah. Very interesting indeed.
So, have you guys ever looked into Mackinac Island?
Oh, no.
I'm trying to find you guys a link.
Is this another woo place?
There's some crazy stuff that's happened there. It's like up in the UP or something like that. I've been there like a couple years ago, just like on a outing out of nowhere, and they kind of treat the place kind of like Disneyland, but there's like a kind of dark past with Mackinac Island. Like there was a bunch of they were doing like a slave trade there and some other stuff like that, but that's like not even the bad stuff. But I guess there was like that place is super duper haunted. Like I'm trying to find the link. I'm sorry, guys. It was just like a last one. Like we should probably talk about this. I just can't remember how to spell it. Mackinac, because it's not spelt the way it sounds. It's not phonetic. But well, anyway, it's kind of hard to go with the story without being able to give you a link. I'm really sorry.
Is it haunted? Is it like man-made?
It's not. I don't think it's a man-made island. I think it's just an island that's off like in the Great Lakes area, and there's a lot of hauntings there from slaves that had passed away apparently. And
There, I dropped the name in Skype of how it's spelled. You want to do some looking on that?
see, my degree in English.
Right, there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
So then, it is an island and a resort area. The U.S. state of Michigan, located in Lake Huron, or Huron, however you pronounce that.
Huron.
Yeah, the
Huron.
eastern end of the Straits of Mackinac, between the state's upper and lower peninsulas, and the island was a long home to the Ottawa settlement and previous indigenous cultures before European colonization began in the 17th century. Strategic centre for the fur trade and the Great Lakes, based on a former trading post for Mackinac, was constructed on the island by the British during the American Revolutionary War, and it was a site of two battles during the War of 1812 before the northern border was settled and the US gained the island in its territory. In the 19th century, Mackinac became a popular tourist attraction and summer colony. Many of the structures on the island have undergone extensive historical preservation and restoration. Because of its historic significance, the entire island is listed as a National Historic Landmark, well known for numerous cultural events, a wide variety of architectural styles, and I would imagine haunted as heck if there's been like battles there.
So when I went on the tour of that place, you get an overwhelming sense, like if you're real sensitive to that kind of stuff, you get an immediate overwhelming sense of like bad things happened here, like bad things. And so I remember hearing a tale of like haunting stuff, and apparently when everyone leaves there at the end of their shifts or whatever, and then there's very little people there overnight except for like guards. Well, apparently I really am trying to find this story for you, because like this is just something that was told to me by some of the people that were working there. But apparently you see entities there every single night. If they have the lights off, there's like shadow people like everywhere. This is, and this lady that was telling me this was like older. She was like in her 80s, and she worked at the place like a volunteer. And I was just picking her brain about it. I was like, so like this place has a really weird energy. And she's like, oh, you're picking that up. Well, check this out. Blah, 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 blah. There's all these ghosts here. And it was kind of just like, what? And
Right,
she's like, yeah. And she told
dude.
me and like 3 other people about this. And it was just blew my mind, because I was like, we really need to stay after dark. And you can't. You're not allowed to.
Oh, I definitely got it.
Okay. Found something of it.
Mannerus. Hey, Mannerus has got Skype and Discord, right? I'm going to try and get Mannerus onto the Kev Baker show next week. Maybe even Freaky Friday next week. And we're going to get right into Oak Island. Now, I have to scroll back up just before we get into this story, because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, well, Bina McInnes is being like a smith in Nova Scotia, but it is cool having that as part of our history, right? So he's up in Nova Scotia. That's going to be a show and a half. Dang. I'll message you on Discord, dude. So then, the ghosts of Mackinac Island. Ooh, tucked away on the western tip of Lake Huron. Is that right? Is that better, boys?
Yep.
To get?
You nailed it.
Awesome. Huron sits an island. It sounds like in the North Atlantic sits an island. Oak Island. No, it's not Oak Island. This island is steeped in mystery and lost in time. Known for its status as one of the most beautiful and historic tourist destinations in the state of Michigan, the island has a darker side, unfamiliar to many of its visitors. And when the sun sets and the moon casts a glow across the rocky beaches, the spirits of the dead come crawling through the floorboards of the old hotels to remind everyone of the island's bloody past. I tell you, these old Civil War places in the US as well, they're always haunted, right? So it says here,
Very.
yeah, ask any paranormal investigator and they'll tell you that the cause of the haunting can usually be traced, or the cause of a haunting can usually be traced back to something odd occurring in the area. Sometimes it's a murder or somebody doing something bad to themselves. Often it's a phenomena that is attributed to the makeup of the land itself. And once in a while, it's blamed on dark rituals and ancient spirits. When it comes to Mackinac Island, though, you can check off each of those boxes and several more. The furthest back you can go in the island's history is about 700 years before white folks arrived and started screwing with everything. Isn't that, I'm living with that white guilt to this day. Archeological digs.
Very woke of our writers here of the story.
It should be called the Weekend Woke Weird.
Yeah, the weekend woke weird. Yeah.
Cringe.
Archeological digs place ancient Native American settlements on the land as far back as 900 AD. And researchers believe that the island is not only served as has not only served as a prime fishing location, but that the Anishinaabe tribes considered it a sacred place, believing it to be the home of the Great Spirit. Now, I tell you, you know who's going to be able to tell us all about this island then? Kevin from Minnesota. So according to their traditional stories, the island was created by the great hare, Michabu. And it is this reason that the tribes would not only trek to the island to make sacrifices to the Gitche Manitou, but designated it was a sacred burial place for their tribal chiefs. And despite the island's importance to the tribes, Mackinac was mysteriously deserted by the time the European explorers discovered it in the mid-1600s. Now it's getting suspicious. So on you go.
The story that I was told was part of that, but it was also so this older lady, I guess she was like part Native American. And you could tell, like, you can usually tell, like, when someone's is part Native American.
Not very
where
woke
you can
of you.
See it in their face.
Not very woke of you, Andy.
I'm just an observer of things. Sorry, sir. But what she was telling me and the other three people that were listening is that's a very cursed island because of whatever happened in the past. I can't remember the whole entire story, but it's cursed land.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why they deserted it. Maybe they felt the island was cursed or something.
And that's, I think, part of what is where this story is actually going to be going. Like, I haven't read the story that you got here pulled up here, Kev, but I'm sure it will get into that because that's what this lady told me. And it was just, dude, I'm telling you, you can tell when there's like a bad energy about a place, and that place has some very wicked energy about it. It'll just give you the heebie-jeebies.
With the Native Americans there, I wonder if somebody done a skinwalker to it. Wonder if somebody, like, kind of almost cursed the land before they left. But who knows? It says, after being settled by the French, the British took control of the island, establishing Fort Mackinac in 1780. Somehow the fort managed to escape any battles in the American Revolution, but was soon handed over to the US through the Treaty of Paris in 1783. It didn't last long because the island was quickly captured by the British during the War of 1812 and stayed that way despite numerous attempts by the American soldiers to recapture it. The back and forth game finally came to an end in 1815 due to the Treaty of Ghent, putting the island in the hands of the US ever since. In the Civil War, or after the Civil War, Mackinac quickly became a popular tourist destination thanks to its natural beauty. And just 3 years after Yellowstone was designated as the country's first national park, Mackinac Island became home to the second. Hotels and restaurants began to pop up in rapid succession to accommodate the influx of vacationers arriving from nearby cities like Detroit. And the rest is history. So today, Mackinac Island looks much like it did back then, thanks in part to ordinances that require landowners to maintain the Victorian look of the buildings on their property, and others that forbid personal vehicles on the island. In fact, you won't even find a bridge to the mainland on Mackinac, with all visitors instead arriving by ferry or plane. Now, these quirks have culminated in a destination that feels truly frozen in time, so much so that the former residents often refuse to leave long after they're dead. Now we're getting into the ghosties.
I'm sad that didn't get into the cursed part of that, you know. But the story I got from the source that I talked to was that it's cursed.
I think it's sounding cursed. I'm thinking so, man. Well, let's see what kind of activity's going on there. And I think this is going to start to kind of tie in with the kind of stuff that we hear at Skinwalker, if it's the same kind of curse going on. So when you take an island that's essentially that essentially amounts to a giant Native American burial ground, build a fort on it, kill a whole bunch of people there, then turn it into a tourist destination. You get the setup for great 80s horror film. Or in this case, you get an island filled with so many ghosts, it would be difficult to list them all. But while Mackinac might be teeming with spirits, there are a few that tend to make their presence known a little more often. These ghosts are particularly recognised not only for scaring the bejesus out of visitors, but for pushing investigators to dig up some of the island's more unsavoury events swept under the rug of history. There's a lot under the rug of history, folks. Most of what's on top of the rug of history is absolute crap. What's underneath it is the good stuff. So the Grand Hotel, built in the late 19th century. The Grand Hotel is known for two things: being the setting of the 1980 film Somewhere in Time, starring Christopher Reeve, and for being haunted as all get out. Legends say that when the construction crew was digging the hotel's foundation, they began to find so many human skeletons that they lost track of them all.
So I have to interject. You can go on an overnight stay at that place, but you have to sign a waiver, dude. I remember specifically about asking about that, and I don't know if they still do it, but like this, this is over 10 years ago, and you were able to pay, I think it's like $120, and you can stay there, and they feed you breakfast, but they have a ferry ready to take you to land, the other, off the island, just in case you freak out, because they have people come in and they need to leave immediately. Like people that are super duper sensitive to that type of spiritual energy, they need to get the F out immediately if they get these people messing with them from the afterlife. Apparently it's dude, like we went on a tour of that place when we were there, and oh man, like I felt my skin crawling the whole entire time I was there, dude.
Okay, now hold that thought, because I think we are going to a break. Now, it might not work, it might happen, it might not, because we had the disjointed start, but if it does, you're listening to Freaky Friday, and we're going to be back in 3 minutes. But I don't think it is going to go, and we're just going to go right through the breaks. Oh, it's one of these nights. It's like the old school Truth Frequency when Chris and Cherie just used to go and go and go. So let's just keep it going then, shall we? So did you stay in this hotel, dude?
No.
Nah.
No way.
Nah.
No, man. There's no way. Dude, you walk in that place, and have you ever, like, if you get out of the shower, you got a little bit of water on your neck and you get a fan blow across you?
Yeah.
And you just get the, like, it was like that every couple seconds I was in there. And we were there in the middle of summertime.
Oh, we need Jason to go there, man. We need Jason to get over there big time. So it says, legends say that when the construction crew were digging at the hotel's foundation, they began to find so many human skeletons, they lost track of them all. So then, to this day, rumours persist that the workers, increasingly unsure of how to handle the situation, simply gave up on collecting the bones and started building the hotel anyway. And the results are, as you might predict, whoa. Is that like literally a picture from there?
I've
But
never
if it
seen
is-
that, but that looks shopped.
It does look a little shopped, but
That's where someone spontaneously combusted.
it looks like the Mothman's hired a room for the night. So one of the spookiest tales to come from the old hotel deals with an evil entity in the form of a black mass. Can I hear a shadow man?
Dude, I didn't even know this. I just brought it up out of nowhere, and this is what that lady was telling me. And it's just like the fact that you're reading the article is like,
We're getting into the shadow man. So as two maintenance men performed a check of the hotel's theatre stage, one of them was struck with the overwhelming feeling that something was watching them. Something that he could only describe as evil. As he looked out over the stage, he noticed two glowing red eyes peering from a dark shadow hovering above the theatre floor. As he watched in horror, the black form began to rush toward him, knocking him off his feet. 2 days later, the man awoke in hospital and swore to never return to the Grand. Now, the stories don't stop there. Some staff have reported seeing a man in a top hat frequenting the second floor bar's piano, only to disappear moments later, leaving only the lingering scent of a cigar behind. Others have reported a woman in Victorian clothing that tends to roam the hotel's employee housing, and sometimes even curling up next to the workers as they bed down for the night. Oh, that's a bit cold, man. So then, Fort Mackinac itself is going to get pretty tasty here, I would imagine, right? It goes without saying that locations known for their part in battle are magnets for restless spirits. Just look at Gettysburg or Perrysville battlefield. But rarely are there as many reports as the ones captured in Fort Mackinac. From apparitions of soldiers glimpsed walking the rifle trail, to piles of phantom limbs spotted in the hospital, to furniture that moves on its own, tripping motion detectors in the officer Hill's apartment. The quarters and the fort has no shortage of paranormal activity. Now, not all of the deaths that occurred at Fort Mackinac were those of soldiers either. At least 13 young people passed away here, and victims of typhoid fever, tuberculosis, and other diseases. Now, those who have heard the cries of children echo through the halls believe that some of their spirits still reside among the private quarters where they once lived. Even eerier, those who wake early enough to watch the sunrise can sometimes hear the sound of a phantom fife player echoing through the fog near the fort's North Sally port entrance. That would be terrifying.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah, I heard that. I heard
Man.
part of that story as well.
never heard of this place, dude. This is a good woo place, man. So we've got
I'm just glad I remembered about this to say something about it, because I was thinking about it the other day when I had my Facebook popped up, memories, and there was like a picture of me and some friends out there, and I was like, I remember that place. I should ask Kev if he's ever heard of this place.
No, never. I've never even seen it been investigated or anything. Man, this is cool. So
Yeah.
the drowning pool, located in the area between the Mission Point Resort and Mackinac's downtown area, is a 20-foot drop-off which has been nicknamed the Drowning Pool. So according to local historian and paranormal researcher Todd Clements, it received its name not from the occasional accidental drowning, but from the purposeful torture of women accused of witchcraft. So back in the 1700s and early 1800s, when Fort Mackinac was in its heyday, a lot of brothels popped up. Seven women were accused of being witches and enticing unsuspecting soldiers, fur traders, and husbands to their houses. Unsuspecting indeed. It is said that rocks were tied around their ankles and they were thrown into the lagoon. If they sank, innocent, sorry. That's the craziness of back then, wasn't it? You tie rocks onto people, throw them in water, and if they drown, oh well. What can you say, Scott? I mean,
I wonder, that's probably where the band Drowning Pool got their name from.
you think so?
Let the bounties hit the flow. Let the bounties hit the flow.
Bounties hit the flow.
Excuse boy, you need new music, man. So anyway, Clemens believes that the accused still haunt the drowning pool. I would imagine they do, making one of the scariest and most dangerous places on the island. We have seen shadows coming out of the water that make no noise or ripples, he told the Midland Daily News. We've heard huge splashes that were too big to be fish, and no one is around. But it goes on. What do you make of that one then, Scotty?
Yeah, that probably sounds like a very, very active area, especially if innocent people were just, you know, thrown into their death, basically. I'm sure there is a lot of paranormal energy probably tied to that location, no doubt.
And somebody in the chat room said, "Is Joe napping?" Joe just got home from work a short time ago, so I've told him chill. If he comes along, he comes along. If not, I'm sure the three of us have got enough woo to keep us going, and I'm sure we'll see Joe at the weekend. But this place again, Andy. Oh, mega thank you for pointing this place out. This is cool. So we've got the Mission Point Resort. Built in the 1950s as a World Conference Centre for Uncle Bill. No, sorry, only joking. But he gets buildings built after him and everything. Now he's God, right? The Moral Realignment, a cultish religious group that aimed to mould the world's morals to their own liking. The property changed hands a few times until the late 80s, when it officially became the Mission Point Resort. Of all the haunts on Mackinac Island, this one remains as the most active. So the resort's most popular ghost is that of a student nicknamed Harvey, who died in the late 1960s. And as the official story goes, Harvey, the victim of a broken heart, made his way to the bluffs behind the resort, then leased to Mackinac College. Oh, and done something absolutely horrendous to himself with a gun. Now, his body wasn't discovered for 6 months. And Clements, who spoke with a state police officer about the case, believes that there was more to Harvey's story, which might explain why his spirit never left the island. They ruled it suicide at the time, said Clements, but we believe there was another guy involved in what was going on. And Clements discovered that Harvey died not one, but 2 bullets to the head. Well, I think at that point, the self-deletion, the self-deletion theory kind of goes out the window, right? Wouldn't you think?
Somebody better check somebody better check if he knew Hillary. Just saying.
Just saying, yeah. Adding more fuel to the mystery was the fact that the gun was discovered nowhere near his body. Now, if that doesn't say unfinished business, I don't know what does. Today, now hang on a minute. Why isn't that seems pretty obvious. You've got 2 holes in your head. The gun isn't in your hand or just falling out your hand. Why is that deemed anything other than suspicious?
Well, I meant it. Oh, sorry. It depends on where the source of the story is coming from, right? I meant if you're getting all your information secondhand, then you might not be being told the whole story, right?
You might not. But weird. Today,
Yeah.
Harvey is often reported lingering in the Mission Point's theatre, where he's known to pinch and poke young women in the dark. Now, numerous other spirits are said to inhabit the resort, from ghosts of a young girl heard calling to her parents, to Native American spirits wandering the property, to a woman heard singing old-time music near the theatre. And the Mission Point Resort is so haunted, in fact, that it drew the attention of Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters, who filmed an episode there in 2010. One of its stars, Amy Bruni, believes that Mackinac's hauntings might have a lot to do with how little the island has changed over the years. Mackinac is legitimately a step back in time, she said. They don't allow motorised vehicles on the island, so it's quite quiet, and you feel like you're from another era. They have also put a huge focus on restoration and preservation, so it puts you in the mindset that you can connect more with any spirits that might be lingering. You're looking at the island exactly as they did, and I think that's why so many never leave. It's always the same. I tell you what, I'm gonna have to look into this place a lot more.
I have another one for you guys. We
have more. I think you need I think you need to take a read of this one, dude, because I need to wet my whistle. I need to go to take a little toilet break, and I shall be right back.
All right. Well, I'll start this. So, Scotty, I dropped that up in the thing. So,
Pull it up.
this happened back in 1976. Big Thompson Canyon runs from Estes Park down into Loveland, through the canyon or whatever. There's like other little towns through there. I don't know if anyone in our chat has ever heard of this, but there was a flood.
I've heard of this. This was yeah.
So like this is gonna get creepy. So I have a lot of weird stories like this. It's partially the reason, the whole spooky Andy thing, just so you guys understand. My family had a cabin that my granddad had built, and it's in the Big Thompson Canyon area. The land he had a couple like bungalow style log homes that he'd rent out to hunters. If you catch my drift here, like they were dudes that were just rolling through. They were just staying in these bungalows to go hunt, and they'd hunt on my granddad's land. And he had on this land had oh hey, I'll go sweet. Oh, sorry, I just was reading. I'm really bad about that. So on that land there's these bungalows, and when that happened, there was two people that were working in Estes Park that had passed away when this happened. They were on like their day off or whatever, and when the Big Thompson flooded, it had killed a bunch of people. And there were all these people that were in these houses, or they were like living close to the river. And I guess I'm sorry, I'm trying to draw from memory here what made this happen, but the dam, I guess, in Estes Park had failed, and it was a horrendous thing.
They had gotten like a year's worth of rain that had fell in just like an hour, and it caused the dam to fail. And there were lots of people who lived along the edge
along the banks
of the river, and there was also a lot of campers and just people in general just out there, and like it killed a lot of people. I can't remember the death toll, but it was like one of the most kind of like horrific sort of flooding events that occurred. I think it was like it says here it was like 144 people.
Only 8 people actually died. I think everyone else was like rescued or
No, it says by the time it was all said and done, 144 people were killed. So.
Oh, really?
Have you ever heard about that hidden treasure in Colorado? Is it in Colorado?
Yeah, dude, it's in my backyard.
No. But you know what I'm on about?
No.
Oh, hang on, I'm gonna have to find this now.
I'm sure if you can find something of relevance to him, I might have heard of it.
Yeah, there's been people like lost their lives over it. It was like a millionaire had like hidden like.
Is it the one that's in Estes Park?
It's in like. Oh, hang on. Hidden treasure. Might actually be the Grand Canyon. Maybe. It's the Grand Canyon, mate. It's nowhere near you. It's New Mexico. I don't know. It might be near you. I've got no idea about America. I know where the West Coast is, and I know where the East Coast is.
It could be anywhere from the Grand Canyon all the way up into Canada. It's somewhere in the
Rockies.
Yep.
Yeah, and they don't know exactly where it is, and all they know is that this Finn dude has left a riddle that if you can solve it, then you can find the treasure, supposedly. But
it says here an 87-year-old millionaire buried treasure in the Rockies, and he's offered one main clue. Somewhere in the Rockies, and roughly 1,000 miles between Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Canadian border, I don't like that word may, may be a treasure chest worth millions. The man who claims to have hidden the fortune back in 2010 is Forrest Fenn, now 87, a former Vietnam fighter pilot and art dealer. And Fenn estimates that as many as 350,000 people have gone hunting the treasure. He tells CNBC Make It, and adding that there is no way of knowing whether anyone has actually gotten close. It could be found soon or 1,000 years from now, he says. No one knows where the treasure chest is but me, Fenn told NPR in 2016. And that includes his wife. If I die tomorrow, the knowledge of that location goes in the coffin with me. The main piece of guidance Fenn has offered is a 24-line poem, or a cryptic 24-line poem, he wrote in his self-published memoir, The Thrill of the Chase. He has since shared the poem on Instagram. Here we go then, right? We ready? You're going to have to mute up again, Andy. Your mic's gone. And there we go. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. Put it below the home of the brown. Q. Oh, sorry, I thought I was reading a QAnon post there for a minute. I was waiting for kill brackets coming on. Are we going? Are we going, boys? Are we going to go and find it? Are we?
Yeah.
So there it is there. Is this like the proper poem here?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so this is the full poem then, right? We might as well go for it. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasure bold, I can keep my secret where? A bint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. Put it below the home of Brown. From there, it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down, your quest to cease. But tarry scant with marvel gaze. Just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answer I already know. I've done it, tired, and now I'm weak. So hear me and listen good. For effort, or your effort, will be worth the cold. It will be brave, and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. Pretty cool, eh? Pretty cool. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
That to me sounds like it's in a cave.
you think so, man?
Because there's caves everywhere in the mountains.
And I mean,
there's a lot of those caves have underwater rivers in them.
And even then, I mean,
that are
Andy,
cold
think
and warm.
think of the openings into like caverns that you can't even see until you're
That's what I'm
literally
saying.
until you're literally on top of them. You know, it's a lovely part of the world. I must admit, when you see the kind of scenery over there and things, I must admit, beautiful, man. But read the clues in my poem over and over, and study maps of the Rocky Mountains. Ben recently told Business Insider, try to marry the two. The treasure is out there waiting for the person who can make all the lines cross in the right spot. The chest is nearly a square foot in size and weighs 40 pounds when full. It supposedly contains emeralds, rubies, gold coins, and diamonds, all artifacts that Fenn, a self-taught archaeologist, amassed during his own sometimes controversial explorations in the southwest, reports Vox. And the millionaire was criticised in the 90s for excavating the San Lazaro Pueblo Indian site that he bought, for example, and the FBI searched his home in 2009 in connection with the sale of artifacts looted from the Four Corners area, though no charges were filed. This guy sounds like a bit of a rogue Indiana Jones type dude, right?
Yeah, he totally does. Like, he's got the money. He's like, all right, I'm just going to run around and look for artifacts because, hell, why not? Let's do it. Yeah, he does. It's like a total like rogue Indiana Jones guy.
Big time, big time. So what else have we got, ladies? What other woo has Andy got up his sleeve?
Did you see the Big Thompson River thing?
So, is there a lot of hauntings associated with the Big Thompson flood?
Lots, a lot. But I haven't ever seen any stories on it. I can just tell you stories of stuff that has happened to me on the land that my grandfather had. Because on that land, there's a. I really wish that it was still in the family, but it's not. But we have an old mine on the land, like an old gold mine. That's you can't go in there, but there's places on the land where you can go into like caverns and go spelunking like underground and like get what were the stalactites and stalagmites. There's a lot of stuff like that here in the Rockies, and on the land that my granddad used to have that those people had passed away on, it was always speculated in like our family that those people, their ghosts, like inhabit that land now, because even till I was like, I don't know, 18, that was around the time that we had to part with the land, unfortunately. You'd go up there for like a week or so, and that you'd stay in the cabin, and you wouldn't be hearing coyotes or anything like that. It'd be dead silent, and you could hear like disembodied voices and noises like all night long. You'd have to go up there and have earplugs to sleep. It was kind of creepy, dude. I don't know what to make of that, but like it wasn't just me. It was like my mom, my brother, my sister, any of our cousins. A lot of our cousins would not go up there. I've talked to Kev about some of the stuff with my family's past, coming from Salem, Massachusetts, and yeah. there's stories that like my grandmother would tell us, and she would really freak us out. But now, like being older and looking into all this stuff, it's like, oh well, now all this stuff kind of makes sense. But some of the haunted land that was around, or that we were on, I don't know, it's just creepy, dude. But the whole story about like the Big Thompson River flood and all those people dying and stuff kind of puts you already in the mood. But then when you start talking to locals, they'll tell you like if they rebuilt their homes, or their cabins there on the river, that they're haunted to high hell. Like they're bad.
Dude, I mean that was a very traumatic event that occurred, and a lot of people, perished like pretty much instantaneously.
Yeah.
Or
swept away.
Yeah, they were just there one minute and then they weren't. And so once again, it's kind of like these, it's any location where you have a lot of like trauma take place in that location, it's going to carry that energy, and then not only that, me and Kev have talked about before, it seems like there's kind of also a connection with water in general, like sources of water. That water seems to carry, information or hold some kind of a thing. So if you had something like that happen, along a river or whatever, I think kind of boost that paranormal sort of energy as well. So
do you guys know anything about the Stanley Hotel?
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you have.
Yes, you have. Yeah. You've seen The Shining, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, man.
So
Yeah.
Dude, check this out. I can probably get my wife to come tell you the story, but her dad's home in Boulder, this isn't a joke, dude. Like, there's actual, like, proof of this. My wife's father's house is where The Shining was written.
Whoa, man.
I'm not fucking around. Like, she tells me this, and I was like, yeah,
excuse the
I don't
language
know.
for the radio, of
Oh,
course.
I
Yes.
forgot we were
Yeah.
on.
I know
I'm
you
sorry.
did. That's all good, brother. That's all good. But yes,
It's
apologies,
just a trippy
apologies.
story. Yeah, sorry, everyone. I'm a foul-mouthed pirate hooker.
Tell
so,
us about no. Get us back to the woo, man. Get us to the woo.
So, all right. Well, I'll just you guys. You'd have to hear that story from the wife. Well, anyway, check this out. So, the Stanley Hotel is super haunted, dude. And if you get the right room, and like, dude, they'll take you on a tour and show you the room. And it's like you're like, nah, dude. You stay there for a night, and it is a trip, dude. And not only that, but like, dude, they won't show you in those pictures, but like, the place is so haunted. They went out of their way to put good luck charms into the wood, into the finishing on the paneling in the house, like with like incantations to like help with the amount of haunting going on in the hotel.
Here we go. We've got a recent story on it, dude.
So wait. So like, just so you understand like what I'm saying here, before World War II, this place was around, and they used Hindu I can't remember what the swastika comes from. I'm sorry. But the reverse version of it meant good luck.
Yeah.
And they put that in the woodwork in this place, and it's everywhere. And you go on a tour on this place. I meant, like, I don't know if Algo's ever been there, because Algo's here in Colorado too. So he might be able to back me up on this. If you go on the tour, there's swastikas all over this place, because there's supposed to be good luck charms to help you with like bad spirits and to help people move on.
That's the crap thing about World War II. They absolutely bastardized that symbol. Because everything I've heard about it, the ancient meaning of it was purely positive,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that's in this place.
Yeah.
I guess I can't remember who built it. I think it was like the DuPont family is who built that place.
Oh, nice bit of money going on there, man.
Yeah, they're the ones that actually brought Estes Park into like something. Like, they made it something, I guess. They made it like it was like a one trail that went from right outside of Loveland. When you go through Loveland, Colorado has its own mystery stuff, and I could fill your ears with the amount of nonsense about Loveland that will just blow your mind. But we'll focus on this because my ADHD won't let me do otherwise unless I just focus. So, the Stanley Hotel, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering this right, was built by the DuPont family. And there was one road that went in and out of Estes Park. It was a dirt road. And on that dirt road, at one point in time, the DuPont family, while they were building this place, were robbed by Native Americans that didn't want them on their land. And I guess, like, over the course of, this build process, they'd been robbed a few different times. And I think that's where a lot of this hauntings and other stuff happened. And the hotel itself is mega haunted, to the point where they talk about there being like energy vortexes in between the levels of the hotel where you can like see into the past or something like that. Like, I'm just telling you what stories I've heard when I went on the tour, but I don't know. I guess you can read the article. I have to use the little boy's room, so I'll be right back, okay?
I mean, when they wrote the book, I know the book differs from the actual movie, and there's a lot of people suspect that Stanley Kubrick, he deliberately changed parts of it because he was trying to tell another story within the story. But that's a whole show into itself, and really the best person to talk about that is Jay Widener. I might actually reach out to Jay because he's doing his own stuff on YouTube now on Reality Check. I would love to get him to come on and talk about that, because he makes a compelling case that within the movie The Shining, within it is encoded a secret. And that secret could just be that Stanley Kubrick had a lot to do with let's just say the footage that we seen when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin went to the moon. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil all of the nuggets that are in there if you haven't like looked into that documentary. Have you ever looked into that, Scott?
I've heard things because, you know, about Stanley Kubrick, you know, encoding some stuff in The Shining. I mean, I haven't looked deep into it or whatever, but that definitely would be an interesting thing. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, we are talking about Stanley Kubrick after all.
Yeah, and
So,
I mean, there's a
yeah.
bit where you got the two girls. Might even be able to get a picture here. Hang on, Shining. Hang on, corridor, child, rocket. Right, see this here? You got that carpet, right? And he's got the NASA, well, the Apollo shirt on, right? And this is the movie that the young kid is in the big corridor where you see the creepy girls in. So he's got the Apollo rocket on his jumper, and on the floor, it's a really weird, like tacky 70s style, like carpet kind of thing going on, 60s, 70s, and it's a hexagon shape. When you look down on the launch pad of where Apollo 11 took off, Scott, lo and behold, right? It just so happens that it's that shape. And the scene in the movie, the wee boy, he kind of pushes his car down towards, or I think, I'm trying to remember if he's actually literally playing with a rocket, and he walks down the corridor. And I think, off the top of my head, it's to room 137 or 136. And that's a really interesting number, right? It's not the same number as in the book, by the way. So why Stanley Kubrick went for this is quite interesting. But you come to find that the number of the room coincides with how many kilometers it is between Earth and the moon. There's a whole, but that's just one part of it, and you need to watch the entire. Have you seen that then, Andy?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I don't know if I buy it, but it makes
a little bit different after I watched the movie and read the book a little bit different after my wife had confirmed to me that this was actually written at her dad's house. This was before, I guess, her dad lived there, but
well, let's see what
the
it says.
neighbors around the place are like confirmed it, and this was a story that they wrote about it in the Reporter Herald in Loveland, Colorado.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
Ground zero for woo. So
then you can't make that kind of crap up.
No, you can't, man. You can't.
Like,
but you've got. See, this is why.
Weird.
This is why I always think it's best when you kind of like when we open the phones as well, and you get to speak to new people. And it's only through speaking to people with local knowledge of places that you get to find stories like this, you know? So I think it's absolutely fantastic. And there's an article here just last year, the Stanley Hotel's haunted reputation and how it inspired The Shining. So it says, Estes Park, Colorado. The Rocky Mountains are home to a hotel that's widely considered one of the most haunted places in America, and it has ties to a renowned horror film. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, is said to be haunted by several different ghosts, from past owners to children, and even a couple of pets. Now, along with the haunted reputation, the colonial revival-style hotel also inspired author Stephen King to write The Shining, one of his most popular novels that was adapted into a 1980s film starring Jack Nicholson. And the Stanley Hotel was built by inventor Freelan Oscar Stanley, who moved out of Colorado hoping that the fresh air and plentiful sunlight would relieve his tuberculosis. Now, when he arrived in 1903, he was weak and underweight. But after just one season, hotel staff says his health was restored. And the hotel, says Stanley, was so overjoyed that he vowed to return each summer and ended up building a hotel to bring a level of sophistication to the region. And the Stanley Hotel opened up in 1909. Stanley died in 1940 at the age of 91, but his spirit is said to still roam the hotel. Specifically, staff said he's often spotted in the hotel's billiard room and bar. Stanley's wife, Flora, has also reportedly been spotted in the hotel and is known to tickle the keys of a piano. Now, another ghost that's said to show up is a former housekeeper of the hotel, Elizabeth Wilson, or Mrs. Wilson. Now, and was that you making that noise, Andy?
My dog.
Oh, wow, man.
It's not 8 o'clock yet.
Oh, I thought the hounds... I thought Jason's hounds of the Baskervilles were back, man. I was going to say, oh, no, this ain't happening. I'm not having growling happening on the Skype call.
Hey, you guys, I have to point this out. So, the guy, Stanley, I know is the guy that built it, but, like, I might be having a Mandela effect because I'm pretty sure the DuPont family had something to do with this.
Maybe they funded it. You never know.
I really hope I'm not having a weird Mandela effect on stream here.
That'd be awesome,
like,
because Freaky Friday is turning into the kind of place where Mandelas are
it's like a regular.
It's starting to be our thing.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is because there is a 1912 DuPont race car in the lobby of the place. They have a old Ford Model A and a Ford Model T there, all this stuff, but like there's specifically a DuPont race car there for a reason. And
there might be something to this, because even I thought that there was some kind of a DuPont connection with the hotel as well. That's why I was like,
it's to the point where like the car that I'm referring to has a set of headlights that I wanted for the last 20 years before I sold my hot rod. I wanted to get a set of these headlights that are on this DuPont race car to put on my hot rod. And when I went up there for finally go watch see the tour, it was like maybe a couple years after I had built my hot rod, I had looked at this car and be like, I need those headlights. So it's like, I have a little bit of ground here to be like, I know that this was there. But maybe I'm misremembering something, or I'm having a Mandela effect here.
You've got the Ute and the Arapaho tribes there. Now the Ute tribe, they're the ones that were in not Oak Island, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. And they're all over Colorado, dude.
Having a look here. Yankee inventor Freeland Oscar Stanley arrived in the valley week. They've absolutely just blatantly copied that out of there.
Yeah, they did.
I'm going to see, so hang on, search.
Well, this is the
DuPont,
Stanley Hotel's
right?
website.
No, there's no DuPont at all. But that doesn't mean it doesn't mean you guys ain't having a Mandela effect. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a trip.
Anyway.
Weird.
Let's
just move on.
You guys will recover now. The tour guides say that Wilson was lighting lanterns in room 217 when she was seriously injured in an explosion. Now, she survived the blast but passed away years later. Now, it seems Wilson is a regular in 217. Guests report items being moved, luggage being packed up, and lights going off and on. It also seems Wilson is rather conservative. Guides say she's not a fan of unmarried couples, and people who aren't married have reported feeling a cold presence between them while in bed. Oh, come on. Now, the spirits aren't...
She's an interdimensional, well, I can't say that.
Swinger. You can say swinger. You can say swinger.
A blocker.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. Either that or she just wants to get some brown chicken, brown cow. Ghosts need loving too. The spirits aren't limited to adults.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
Tour guides say the ghost of a child... It was good, wasn't it? Tour guides of the ghost say a child with autism also roams the grounds and is known to play with the hair of guests. Staff say the boy, named Billy, is drawn to people who work with people with autism or are familiar with the developmental disorder. Now, on the 4th floor, guests have also reported hearing children running around laughing and playing, and guides say that's where nannies and the kids they watched would spend much of the time back in the day. And we have got a super chat coming in from Lee. Yes, so we'll wait for that to come in, then we'll get back to our story here. Thank you very, very much, Lee. Much appreciated. Brian will get to it in his own time, I hope. Won't he, Scott? He got to it earlier on, didn't he?
Yeah, Brian, come on, you're sleeping at the wheel, buddy.
Come on,
Wake up,
Brian.
Brian.
Come on, Brian. You can do it. You can do it, Brian. You know you can do it. Right. It will come up. It will come up. Why has it not come up on here? I'm going to play the last one, right? Right, see if that makes it come through now.
Good to see y'all. Yo Kev, Scotty and Spooky. Let's all sit back, relax and pack a fatty. Let's get a little freaky. Brown chicken, brown cow. Woo.
Right. Now, come on. Now, Brian, get a grip here. Connie is waiting to hear your voice, Brian. She wants to hear you say zonky and zombies and woo. Because we know Brian doesn't say woo. He says woo.
Woo.
Woo. Anyway, I will get back to the story and then I will definitely fix that for you, Lee, okay? I will somehow get Brian out of his bad mood and he will read that out for you. Thank you so, so much. So then, it goes on to say here, not all of the hotel's purported ghosts stand on two legs. There's a pet cemetery on the grounds that guides say is the final resting place for some of the owner's animals. And staff say that the ghosts of a cat and a dog have been seen roaming around. Guides end their tours in a cave system below the hotel. Also, you got caves as well, where staff say there's a higher than average concentration of limestone and quartz, which is believed by some to draw spirits to the property. Now, that's quite interesting as well, the whole quartz thing. You could have I don't know, with quartz, you could have memory stored there. You could also have piezoelectricity coming up, Scott. You could have that feeding the energy, the kind of psychic energy. Pretty weird.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing you see in areas of sort of elevated levels of, paranormal activity or even just kind of general weirdness. This kind of like ties into like ley lines and all of that stuff where, I mean, quartz is a natural sort of, element or, whatever that can hold energy.
Yes.
And
Ask people in Boulder and they rub crystals underneath their armpits as deodorant. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking.
That a thing in Colorado, man. It is now.
Just in Boulder, just a bunch of hairy-legged women and people that smell like BO.
Ah, yeah, I get it. So his wife's in the room and he's trying to get a shoe in the head. It's not a good move.
She
dude.
won't do it.
No, Anne would in a minute. She really would. I'm looking on the back end here just to see what went wrong with that super chat, and I'm quite perplexed and flummoxed. I really am. Hang on. Super chat 3 today. Well, that's registered that, but it's not come through. That's weird, isn't it?
it's kind of weird.
Well, what I will do is I still want a zonkey, and I still wanted zombies. Long live the woo. There you go. It's not as good as Brian, right? It's not as good as Brian, but damn you, Brian. I'm gonna delete Brian and I'm gonna add a new Brian. That's what I'm gonna do. And then we'll get back into our hotel here. Definitely annoyed me. Lee, I love you to bits, and I apologize about that. You can tell I am rather annoyed. Anyway, Anyway, back to our story. Where were we, boys? Where were we? No, now somebody else is super chatted as well now. So if this doesn't work, now I'm going to feel bad twice. Yeah. Oh, now Lee's going to feel really...
Hey guys, look up the
No.
historic Hannah House here in Indianapolis. It's legit haunted. I've caught shadow peeps there twice. Whoa.
Okay then, what's the name of that place? But listen, I'm going to dig up the name of that place. But now, Lee, you are really going to think that was something personal there. Guys, you can see my screen, right? Let Lee know that I don't know what happened there, but it has gone through. It just didn't come through Streamlabs. You see that,
Yeah.
Scott, don't you?
Brian decided to be. I'm gonna have a talk with Brian after the show.
Yep, we are.
You're gonna have to slap the algorithm around.
I do apologize for that. Okay, I apologize. So, right, what's the name of that hotel? What's the name of it? The historic Hannah House. Right. Here we go. We're doing it live. Here we are. Let's see then. Well, it looks haunted already just to look at it, right?
Yeah.
The historic house has several events through the year. Okay, we're wanting to find the hauntings, don't we? Really? Why did that website download something onto my browser? Who knows? It's all going horribly wrong here at I was going to say the Kev Baker show, but it's blatantly Freaky Friday, right? Right, where are we? Haunted Hannah House? Okay then. Legend of the historic Hannah House. Indiana, this is in. It said, one tragic night, a group of slaves cramped in a dark, dirt-filled cellar sit waiting for the right time to leave their hiding spot in the Hannah House and head for the freedom of Canada. Now, is this... So, yeah, is this place? It sounded like the blurb for a book there, Scott. I thought I was reading out like some fictional story. So one of them unknowingly tips over an oil lamp, instantly igniting a fire that traps them there. Now, many to be killed by the smoke inhalation and burns within only a few minutes. Now, the dead are burned in the very cellar that claimed their lives in an attempt to cover up any trace of the incident as quickly as possible. Now, this story happened in this house. Ever since then, the cellar of the Hannah House has been a known area for paranormal activity. Spectral slaves have been witnessed by several people hiding in the shadows, moans and voices have been heard, and cold spots have been felt. It seems that some of the slaves killed on that night might have stayed around, still hiding in the safety of the basement that protected them in life. Also, the apparition of what many think is Hannah himself has been seen on several occasions, on several areas of the property, including the upstairs as well as the balcony. And an older woman has been reported upstairs in and around a particular room. Whispering voices have been thought to be heard, and a chandelier was filmed swinging by a news film team on a particular occasion. Do the former occupants of the Italianate-style mansion still watch over the place they called their home? Many who have stepped through its doors will tell you, and with the history that lies within the walls of the structure, it would be no surprise. Yes, so there you go. I've not heard of that one either. And you know what, Lee? I'm just thinking, I wonder if the word zombie, for some reason, has triggered something, and that's why Brian didn't read it out. I don't know the full list of, like, words that Brian won't say, so I think that might explain it. But again, it's just to apologise to you, Lee, because you never got your message read out. You ever heard of that one, Andy? The Hannah House?
Never heard of that. I had to ask my wife. I was like, "How far away is Indiana from Canada?"
So have you heard any more, like,
bit...
see if we go back to that Stanley Hotel. I mean, What other kind of stories have you heard about that place then? 'Cause I would imagine.
I don't know how much you caught when you were away.
Nah, not too much.
So apparently, like right outside the door of 207 or 217 or whatever that haunted room is, the famous haunted room in the place, there is an energy vortex between the two floors. And I'm just repeating what I was told. I don't know if it was for wow factor, but they were saying how you could, if you went and jumped over the stair rail, apparently, and if the vortex was there, like, I don't know how you would see it. Maybe with your vortex detector ray, sure. But if you were to jump over the handrail, you could time slip, apparently. And this is something that they found out because someone fell over the rail and landed on their feet because they had enough time to adjust themselves mid-fall or something like that. This is just a story that I was told. I don't have a way to back this up unless I had a GoPro on my head when they were telling me all this stuff. But from what I was told is that there's an energy vortex right outside that door. And that might be the reason why you get so much hauntings in there. Plus, I guess there was a fire there, like in the 80s or something like that, that like killed someone. And so that person's ghost is also there as well, apparently.
A pretty trippy place, man.
Dude, it's creepy. That's another one of those places that you get the heebie-jeebies going into. I don't think it's nearly on the level of Mackinac Island where it's cursed, but I mean, like, it's it's pretty steeped in woo. And not only that, The Shining wasn't filmed there. It was filmed in like Montana or something like that.
That's like most of Braveheart, dude. Most of Braveheart was filmed in Ireland. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, they, I guess the reason why they couldn't film there was something to do with like getting permits to film there and like not being able to get permission from the curators of the building, and because it's an active hotel, something like, I don't know. You might be able to look that kind of stuff up, but yeah, it. So the hotel in the movie isn't the same as what the Stanley Hotel is. You can rent out the banquet hall and have weddings in the Stanley Hotel, and I've heard stories about that going south really bad for a lot of people that have decided they were going to have their wedding in the Stanley Hotel. They've had misfortune, if you will, like divorce being one of them, because whatever. And then what else? People getting hurt. Something just happened.
Yeah, it's okay. I've got the phones added in.
I thought Joe came in.
No. We've got the phones added in because there's a lot of people sharing their own stories and things like that. So what better way to get the stories out there than to put the phones on? So if you want to call in and be a part of Freaky Friday, all you got to do is dial the following number. Come on, you know you want to get your woo on with the Woo Crew. Tell us your freaky story. Any shadow dudes, even UFOs, aliens, anything out of the ordinary. So all you got to do is dial 213-233-3998. That's 213-233-3998. Now, I'm not sure if the UK number's on or off. I know some people had a problem, but it's 0044-203-393-2871. That's 0044-203-393-2871. So yes, feel free to call in. Give us your woo, where you're from. Scotty, I still remember when you first introduced us to that place still. Anything else going on in your house either, man? You've not spoke about that in a while. You're your shadow dude kind of problems at one point?
Things have been relatively quiet
Oh,
around
I've
here
jinxed
lately.
it. I've jinxed it.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you're gonna stoke up a little activity now that you've brought it up, Kev.
We brought it back to fruition. Asking you.
Yeah,
Oh no.
But I mean, the whole story of Stull is just crazy, and I don't know if Andy has heard about Stull Cemetery or heard us talking about it before. But
I've heard you talking about it, but I've heard about it before. From when I was a teenager.
Yeah. I figured since you're in Colorado, pretty close to Kansas, word about Stull probably traveled there. Yeah, and yeah, so it's one of those places where it's just a lot of woo going on, and the whole gateway to hell situation, and
yeah.
Okay, we've got a caller. We've got a caller, boys. Here we go. Area code 978. Welcome to Freaky Friday.
Hey.
Who's this we're talking to? How you doing?
This is Ben from Arizona. How you guys doing?
Ben, how you doing, man?
Hey, man.
Not bad. Hey, so couple things. First of all, how disappointing is Oak Island? It's like not disappointing, but you're like 10 seasons in now, and it's like, what are they honestly gonna do if they can't find this thing in another like 2 years? Are they just gonna continue for another 20 years? The kids are going to take over. Like, at the same time, I watch every episode, but I'm just so disappointed at the end of every episode. It's like they spend so much time introducing the characters and I understand that because you could just jump in and start watching at any point. So it's like, that's a great way to do the show. But like,
I feel your pain.
That watch it,
I feel your pain, man. But I'd be more worried. You know what would worry me more? If they were like turning up things all the time, that would be suspicious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying.
That would be. I agree with you.
Now, what about where you live?
So I got a What was that?
What about where you live? Any good woo where you are?
Actually, yeah, man. And I just kind of realized it. So have you guys heard of the guy? I forget his name, but he has a website called the Phoenix Enigma.
Yeah.
God, I forget his name, but it's a whole website just devoted to all the crazy history, like tribal history, pre-tribal history, like these, huge canals that were dug, like, 2,000 years ago, all the way through Phoenix. And it's like they still aren't that big today. Like we have canals and, rivers that bring in our water, but like somehow they were able to, do some work that's just unbelievable. But yeah, man, like pyramids that are hidden in the mountains, like little, things like that, where it's just, there's underground military bases that, you see kind of, antennas coming up from nowhere in the middle of the desert, and you'll just see a little, not little, but some of them are huge, just communication antennas, and they're just in the middle of nowhere. And then you start digging, and you find that there's a huge underground, there's like underground caves and water and these springs, and then the military has like, who knows what they're hiding underground. But yeah, man, Phoenix is pretty nuts. I haven't lived here too long. I'm from Boston originally, but yeah, I had a Mandela effect though that I wanted to run by you guys, because that's like it's the craziest thing in my head. That, some of it's crazy, some of it's real, some of it's not, but this one 100% is real to me and confirmed it. The only other person that's confirmed it with me is Clyde. I called into Ground Zero one night, and he's the only other person who's like, wow, yeah, same here, same with me. So Tiananmen Square, what happened? Someone tell me what your version of Tiananmen Square with the guy. That's
the little Asian man ran out in front of a tank with a bag and put his hand up in front of the tank, and then just stood there until they dispersed. And that's what stopped something. And so the first time I actually watched the video,
So I watched it for the very first time in like high school, like maybe freshman or sophomore year, back in like 03 or 04. So I watched the video, and I remember we had a class that, you know, it was the whole month of it was just about China, and so talking about Tiananmen Square. And I remember that we devoted one entire class to how terrible it was that this guy got run over by the tank. And we watched a video, and it stopped, and then when he was in front of the tank, but then it shows the tank, it cuts to the tank rolling down the street, and there's like these huge blood tracks right behind the tank, and that was like imprinted in my brain. And that was my version of it. I was like, wow, messed up that they ran his ass over.
But now he gets up
so,
onto the tank, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I watched that video,
what?
my heart. So now he gets up onto the tank.
The tank stopped.
Dude.
And then
There's three timelines here that we're intersecting with, because I don't remember that at all.
The one that I've seen recently.
What do you remember?
The one I've seen recently. I remember the one that the caller's talking about. That's the one I remember.
Really?
I don't remember the blood trails, because the way I remember it in the UK was they just cut away, and you never heard about what happened to that guy anymore. But it was kind of, you knew what had happened, right? But then I watched a thing recently.
Right.
And now the tank goes to go round him, and he jumps to the side again, and then he starts getting up on top of the tank, and he starts knocking on the roof, and he opens the roof of the tank, and and that's the first time I'd ever seen that.
I have two theories about that. I have two theories about that video. The way that it's running in this timeline, right, that we're currently in right at this moment. So if you watch that video, you'll notice that it kind of, so the guy right before he jumps up onto the tank and the tank turns a little bit, right before that, when he's just standing with his hand up, the video kind of cuts out and cuts right back in real quick. It's like a half a second, but it cuts out, cuts back in. So it's like somebody either spliced that tape, which is, I find very hard to believe, because, somebody else there would be remnants of it somewhere, right? If it actually happened in this timeline. However, the other thing that's kind of crazy about that is China, back in 2007, 2008, they went through this whole phase where they were buying up. So they tried to buy up Getty images. They tried to buy up all of these stock photos that were just online, right? Everywhere, any kind of stock photos. So Getty images was one. What's the other? It was another big one, Corbis. They bought that company that owned Corbis. So all these stock photos, China bought them up, and then they started censoring random ones. So people would call them out and say, what happened with X, Y, or Z? And then they, would go through a little dialogue, and then you never see those pictures again. So China spent billions buying up these stock photos, videos, bought the copyrights to a bunch of crazy stuff. And the company that, who is it? I think Bill Gates was the owner of one of these companies, and he sold it to China. He was the owner of the company that owned Corbis, right? It was like a Microsoft entity. And so it could be something like that, where somehow China has managed to, because you know how touchy it is with them, because they don't want anyone talking about Tiananmen Square. People do. It's like they have to tell their angle. And so I don't know. It could be something like that, but I feel even if China managed to somehow find every copy of it, there would still be something out there, right? There were, or some kind of account of what actually happened. But then they never found the guy. The guy's like, no one knows what happened to him. So I don't know. But Clyde,
wasn't there a company that was going around editing videos and like cutting and pasting things in, and that's what someone was like? This is like something I heard about like a couple months ago. They were attributing some of these Mandela effects to this company that was going around and editing video old video and then reposting them.
Interesting. No,
Do
I
you-
haven't heard that. Was it fairly prominent videos? Were they trying to edit like the JFK videos, or were they doing like
Lots
little,
of stuff,
things
like
the-
like in movies, and changing just enough to make it be.
Right, hang on, Scotty. Come on, because Scotty, you don't remember him getting run over, do you?
No, I never remember him getting run over.
Scotty,
That's
did
the-
you remember him just standing in front of the tank until the clip had stopped?
No, I remember him standing in front of the tank,
Like
and then
he
I
dodged around because the tank was
Yeah,
trying
like-
to move at him.
Yeah, and he kept like shuffling side to side, and
Yes.
you know, and then he
Mhm.
stood in front of it for a while, and then I remember him climbing up on top of the tank, and then I don't,
Dude,
you know,
I don't remember the climbing part.
I don't remember it, but yeah,
So-
that's what I seen the other
So
day. Yeah.
Kev, if you pull up the video that exists today, right, the quote unquote real, like the only video that is out there, I think it's
Well-
I think the AP, someone from the AP.
I
took
can only
that
tell
video.
people to do it at
You'll-
home, really. I can tell people because we've got the radio as well right now, so I'll
Oh
try.
yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I'll
yeah,
try
I'm
and
on the
pull
radio,
up. Yeah,
but-
I'll try and pull it up. But I'm sure
yeah,
people will be
just-
able to get it at
blows my
home and
mind
all.
because it's
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 so weird though. But
absolutely
the thing
slight.
is, the thing is, I don't think anybody's wrong. I don't
No,
think
no, I
anybody's
don't know. This is what I always tell people, Scott. You're
Right.
everyone's own individual because you have your own memories. And if somebody
Yeah.
remembers something, then you can't say that they don't remember that. And that's why I think we're all shifting between different timelines, things going on, you know? Yeah, it
You know
is
what's
there.
And I
crazy
think
about
the last time
saying this out loud is
yeah, go
that
ahead.
we are able to recognize the fact that that's actually something that's happening, and we're not actually freaking out about it. We're just talking about it.
Yep.
That's
Right.
that's something different to think about.
That's weird when you think about it
Well, I'll
that
tell
way.
you, the first time I saw that video, the one that exists today, I freaked out. But you know, that's a different thing altogether. The first time I saw it, man, my heart dropped. It was unbelievable. Like I felt like I had to verify my. It was the first thing that I distinctly remembered, other than my mom reading Berenstain Bears to me. That actually freaked me out.
Hold on a second, okay, man. We're watching the video.
Here he goes. He's going to go up.
Oh,
There he goes. He's
beautiful.
up on it. He's going to start knocking and going in and. Yep.
So, but right before he even jumps on the tank, watch for the splice.
I
Watch
didn't-
for the
I didn't
splices.
see
So he's got
anything.
his
I didn't-
hand up.
I didn't see any splice, man.
I promise it's there. So right when he's got his hand up, it's like a half a second, and you'll see that the camera goes clip, and it cuts to him to the tank turning.
I've just watched it and I don't see no
Yeah, I
splice,
didn't
man.
see it.
Really?
Yep.
Get out of here.
It's one
No,
solid shot.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
looking at
Are
the
you-
surrounding objects, and
Yeah.
nothing's clipped in. There's
Nah.
nothing there. But I don't remember him getting.
No,
on
I
top
don't
of the
remember. I
tank.
remember it kind of cutting away, and because it's
That's what I
Britain, because
remember.
it's Britain, and we're a bit, I don't know what you'd call it, stiff upper lipped or a bit
What do
well
you
to
think
do.
he
We just
said
kind
to
of.
him when he went up to the lid?
He probably said to him,
Okay, so-
He said, "Yang Wang."
you know, in
Hey,
another
man.
timeline, you just hit me. That's what he said to him. When I tried this before, I never got this
Jeez.
far. So I don't know what timeline we're on now, boys, but I tell you, it's a weird
Holy
timeline.
crap, man. The video's not even spliced now. I'm watching it. Hang on. I promise you that I'm not crazy because.
Oh,
the
we know
reason
you're
I
not.
noticed
Listen,
it-
dude,
It could have
listen.
been an
No,
artifact
yeah,
video.
nobody.
No, well, there's an article out there. So if you Google, Tank Man video cut or something like that, that's where I found it. I'm not the smart guy that was analyzing
no,
the video that
listen,
realized it was
dude.
there.
Nobody. Listen, this is the best place to call because nobody's gonna
Oh,
laugh
I'm not
at you.
taking offense.
I know, and
I'm not saying anyone's right or
But
wrong.
you got
either.
to
No, I
understand,
totally
right?
understand.
that article that's been put out, that to me sounds like a bit clickbaity.
Yeah.
You know, so somebody can easily do something
Yeah,
to
you
that.
could be right.
Somebody could easily do something to that video where it absolutely looks
Yeah.
spliced and put it in that article, And you have seen something that looks well spliced, you know?
I've been had. Damn.
Hey, no, that's
Yeah,
why we're a
somebody-
team, dude.
Some of us
That's-
have.
we got to crowdsource the woo, but
Yeah.
it doesn't change the point that many people have different memories of this one event, man. And it is one of these things. It really is. Scott remembers it the way it is. I remember it cutting
doesn't
away.
It doesn't take away from the fact that there are two very different versions. People remembering this guy getting ran over, which I never, that never existed in my reality or my timeline. I always just remember him jumping up on the tank like that.
Technically
And
three.
Kev,
Technically three.
yeah,
If you don't remember him jumping on the tank.
No, not just cut away, Andy.
Well,
Yeah.
so the video that you guys just watched, was it one continuous shot
Yep.
from him standing
Yeah.
in front of it, or did
Yep.
they cut to? Okay, so there's a couple videos I guess that are out there. So the one I'm watching now, I guess is not the AP video, but it's a different one. This is one from I guess CBS, the CBS Evening News video. But this one doesn't show it. And which one did you guys watch? Because
We've got the CNN version.
Was the CNN? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a continuous shot.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, you know what?
And
Here's my-
people
here's
saying
my,
in the chat too. People were saying in the chat
was
too,
that?
which is to be noted, that there are different angles and camera views of the same event, so we could be looking at different shots as well. I mean, they're all probably located kind of in the same area,
Okay.
but looking at different cameras and different organizations, different news broadcasts filming the same thing. So that could maybe play a role in it too. Maybe some broadcasts cut away, and maybe that's what
Yeah,
the UK.
you're probably
the cutaway.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize that there were so many different versions of it. I think I thought there were. I was under the impression that there were only like a couple out there, and then whatever. But hey, you know what? All I have to say to the CNN thing is they're owned by China anyway. So yeah, say what you will. No, I'm kidding. But
So what do you make of the Mandela then? What do you make of it?
what do I make of it in general?
Yeah, in general,
I
yeah.
think there's something to it.
Yeah.
I think there's something to it, man. Just because the things that not because of any YouTube videos and stuff like that. I think you have to go verify it for yourself. If you go out there and you check, Internet Archive or something like that, where you find old newspaper articles. Newspaper Archive is another good one. I don't even think that's a way to verify information that you think happened, because if it did indeed happen that way, then it's not going to be that way in this timeline. So one thing I do think is interesting, though, if you go on Google and you look at and I hate Google to begin with. I use DuckDuckGo or Yandex. Yandex, really good. But Google does have the analytics tool where you can look at search trends from different years. And say you can type Berenstein Bears the way I think it's spelled, S-T-E-I-N, or I-E-N, whatever, Steen, and E-I-N. And you can see when people started searching that. So I think the first year they have on the analytic records is like 02 or 03, I think 03. And it's like, very low, very low, very low, 03, 04, 05. And then 06, 07, 08 picks up a little bit. And then I think like 09, it just shoots up. So that's obviously when, people started talking about, the Mandela effect aspect of it. But there are people that had always searched it before that. Like right around Christmas time, you'd see Berenstein had like, it was.
Yeah, it was 2009 that
third.
Fiona Broom named it the Mandela effect. And as we came to learn 2 weeks ago, as far back as 1977, Philip K. Dick was talking about what we call today Mandela effects, only he talked about it a different way. He talked about remembering current, present lives. In our words, being on different timelines where the world was slightly different. And that, for me...
fellas.
I heard that, yeah. I heard that show. That was real interesting because I had never heard him talk about it like that before.
I found another version
Well, we've got
of that
another.
video.
We've got another
and if
caller
you-
on. We've got another caller on the line now. So
I'll just
All right, guys.
I'll
Hey,
just
I
say it
appreciate
out
the
loud.
time.
So,
Good.
hey, dude, just so you know, I just found that video that you're talking about, the one that has the cut in it. There is a clip. It's an artifact, dude. It's Kevin, is there any way that you can drop that link I just put in chat on the chat log on the side there? So it's at 3:02 minutes. It's a PBS version of it. It's on
And what do you
Frontline
make of
PBS
that?
official. It's an artifact.
Right. the
It's just a
Frontline
bad
video.
video, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it
you're
says
probably right.
watch the Tank Man. That's what it is. Just so you know, just so you feel
Yeah,
all
it is-
vindicated
it is
here.
that
Yes, I
Frontline.
just watched it and it's
Yeah.
there. So
Okay.
Cool.
Got it. And so no, I think you're right.
But
I
yes,
wish it
there's
was
just an
that. I wish I
artifact
had
clip
just
in it.
thought of that, but there's other versions of it out there and everything. Then you can scrap that idea. But it's definitely interesting, and I appreciate you guys talking about little Mandela effect Friday.
Oh, definitely, dude. We love our Mandela effect on here, man. It's the most confusing topic in the world. But, dude, thank you so
Unbelievable.
much for phoning in, man.
All right, boys. Have a good weekend.
You too. Stay safe, brother, and call in again, man.
too, man.
Loving it, man. You're a cool, dude. So then let's go to a very, very good friend of ours and somebody who'll be able to tell us more about Mackinac Island. Kevin from Minnesota.
Mackinac. Yeah.
Mackinac.
The sea is silent.
Doesn't matter. As a Scotsman, the sea will never be silent. Shut it. Shut it. It's English, not American. Kevin.
I was trying to be the straight man there.
How you doing, brother?
I wanted to bring up, I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking, and I hope that you guys are all finding giggles abundantly. I wanted to call in and share about my Mandela effect, what I think of the Mandela effect, and then when I met the angel of death that I thought was from Mom Talk.
Ooh.
So from my perspective, if I may humbly share, of the Mandela effect. So supposedly Nelson Mandela died, and after he died, because of his popularity around the world, they put his body on ice, and they had him on ice between 6 and 8 months before they decided to do his funeral or his farewell with dictators and the elitists from around the world. And they did his send-off in the spring. The irony that occurred in that spring when they started talking about these thousands and thousands of people gathering for Mandela, people started saying, didn't he die already? And so people started questioning if he died 6-7 months earlier than while he was on ice. Now, the interesting thing about the Mandela effect is not less than 50 miles away from where they had thousands and thousands of elitists gather for his send-off, there was an ancient temple that in the spring equinox, or it was the summer solstice, I can't remember off the top of my head, that at this ceremony there was going to be a pivotal event that where the morning sun would be rising directly between two of these pillars of this ancient ceremony or ritual site. And since we all have those little beautiful smart devices right there at the fingertips of us, you guys can look and validate this. The Mandela effect that I have is from the Tom Cruise movie Minority Report. When they were doing the lead scare when they were saying that children were eating so much lead paint that they were becoming sick and deadly ill. Well, my spider or conspiracy senses started tingling, because what is the one thing that Superman could not look through but lead? And if they can get rid of all of the lead paint out of all of the paint, our homes would virtually be open to the electromagnetic wave weaponry, to where they can watch us through thermal scanning or electromagnetic scanning. And now you can easily find the devices that the fire department and the police use to look into your domicile and watch you walking around in the infrared.
Fortunately, that piece of equipment costs a good like 120 grand, so not all cops are going to have that, or firefighters. That's very rare that a department will actually have that piece of equipment, just so you know.
It's not that rare enough that one night when we had September Night Out, Take Back the Night, we had a neighborhood gathering down the block. And when we were down the block, my daughters, all excited, said, "Dad, you got to come and talk to this guy." Because lo and behold, they were showing this device where they had a big sheet of plywood, not a full piece of plywood, but you could stand on the other side of the plywood, and they would take this imagery gun and shine it or direct it at the plywood, and my daughter would explain to me about how it's working. So depending on the cost or depending on your fire department, they are there and they're out there. And I would be surprised if they were connected to a bunch of drones at 1,500 feet. But the Mandela effect I wanted to talk about is from the movie The Minority Report. In The Minority Report, after he got his eye replacement surgery, he was caught. And when he was caught, he went running through these buildings where they had this truck that had a satellite dish-looking contraption on the top of it. And the operator was sitting there watching him run through this building. And then it started showing disturbance on the video. And then the lead guy started complaining, "Why are we losing the feed?" The operator turned to the screen and said, "He must be in one of those buildings that still has lead paint." And my brother's jaw dropped, and he was all excited because I was talking about the lead paint scare before the Minority Report movie came out. And now I was so excited when that movie was released, because I'm like, here we have the evidence where entertainment, where they utilize it to detain us for something to enter our subliminal. And it was not on the VHS copy. It was not on the DVD copy. I have tasked 3 out of my buddies that I know are able to find bootlegs and stuff like that on the internet, and none of them can find that split scene. Yet my brother constantly reminds me about that, and we call it our Mandela effect.
Well, that's exactly what it is, though. So there you go. There's a thing, right? You blatantly have a shared memory with somebody of something really significant that tied into something else you were looking at. And then years down the line, you come to find out that no matter where you look, that event that you shared with somebody, it no longer exists. Now, nobody can take that away from you, Kev. Nobody can take that away from your brother. And that's why I always tell people, you know, whatever's going on here, it's right up there with deja vu. And I've never once heard anyone laughing at somebody saying they've had deja vu. I've never had somebody nudging me going, "Listen to that fool over there thinking about deja vu." And that's why when it comes to Mandelas, some get them, some don't. Some might go for years, and then you might have something very personal. It might be something that you don't even share with people, because it might just be something really personal to you. But that means then, if all of us are experiencing things that at one time happened, and then we go back to look at the cause of why it happened or how we remember it and it's not there, I honestly don't know what kind of Russian quantum dolls that opens up for a multiverse and timelines and what's going on? Are they manipulating them physically just now? Are we having our memories altered? There's so many different ways that you could look at this, and there's absolutely no way I think we can narrow it down. And at the same time, I absolutely know that there'll be some people out there that are having false memories. That maybe just are remembering things slightly differently. Like, look, I am your father. No, I am your father. You know, could easily just have remembered that, misremembered it, you know? Who knows?
No, not that one.
Yeah, for you, but for people who always had Luke.
C-3PO also had one silver leg.
For you, but for anyone else who remembers it the other way, dude, you see, you can't do that. You can't do that because.
But wasn't.
How can you do that, Andy? Andy, wait a minute though. How can you laugh at people who, just because they don't have the same memory as you, how can you laugh and just like throw your hands up in there? If people haven't been on that timeline or haven't got that Mandela.
I'm not laughing at the people. I'm laughing at the fact that it's a thing. It's so cringe. It's like, well, how do you not know this? And then they're like, but it never was like that. And that's what's like.
It's messed up, but it's a thing. And what does it mean? Who honestly knows? No one knows. Mandela.
Well, Kevin, don't you remember that Wachowski sisters' new political version of Star Wars where it was, Luke, I once was your father. Now I'm your mother.
I'm your non-binary.
Oh my God! Please don't give them any ideas.
I think we are almost out of time. I think we're about to hand off to the paranormal portal. I think. No, I could be wrong because we might have knocked the network entirely wrong when we went live late earlier on. So, Kev, I might have to cut you off in a moment, and if I do, please phone in next week. Maybe if I've got a free night, we can get you on. Come and hang out with me on the Skype for an hour. Save the phone. And, folks, it's been an absolutely brilliant Freaky Friday. Thank you, Andy. Hope you've had fun. Yes.
Yes, of course.
Scotty, have you had fun?
Of course, always.
Kev, have you had fun?
Always having fun, my brother.
There you go. And I tell you what, it's looking good on the back end for us to hand it over to the paranormal portal. So wherever you are, make it TFR. And Denny, touch that dial. We need to get you to record that as a sound clip, dude. That's the best like human Wookiee sound I've ever heard.
I can do them better.
You think so?
I know.
Are you like a human Wookiee?
The human beatbox.
Nice, man. Don't even ask me to do
like that.
You know, see, even making noises like that, I sound bad. But folks, we are. See, ZX81 is saying C-3PO's leg is not a Mandela. He got zapped and dumped in the garbage truck in ESB. Chewie found him and grabbed his bits. And Wookiees are colorblind. Silver and gold, very similar. There you go.
Thank you. There
you go.
Vindicated, yes.
You see, this is what I don't get with people. This is what I don't get. They get all happy when somebody shares their false memory or something. What if it's just shared? What if it's shared insanity? You know,
it might be.
There you go.
It's technically not my insanity. It's a collective. It's
exactly. And then you've got the other side. Then you've got the other people that never experienced that, and then you've got the other group of people who have never watched Star Wars in their life and wouldn't know anyway.
See, there you go, Kev. You called it a false memory, but it's not false for him.
Exactly. But it is exactly.
You need to get woke with my memories.
No, you need to get woke with all of ours. You were.
I have been, and they're wrong.
No. 7.5 billion of us disagree with you, Andy. We're all right. It's okay.
That's fine.
We'll just go to a different timeline. That's what we'll do. We'll go to a place.
The DuPont family isn't there anymore at Stanley Hotel.
When you wake up
C-3PO
tomorrow,
is all gold. He's all blinged out.
When you wake up tomorrow, you'll be called the DuPont effect. There you go. You'll be like, oh, what is going on here? Nelson Mandela will be in charge of the Who. Bill
Yeah.
Gates will be living in a shoebox in San
Oh, I hope so.
Francisco, living in his own feces. Yes, it'll be a very positive timeline when we end up there. And the Queen
I'll
will
take that.
still be a lizard. She'll still be slithering away around Buckingham, lizardy, lizard breath. Yes, indeed. Why can't we have a Mandela effect where we wake up and they're not German anymore? They're an all right kind of family. They don't moan about us having to pay for their cold weather bills, and I don't know, maybe they haven't raped and pillaged every country that they ever visited. That would be a positive Mandela effect, right?
Yeah.
Buckingham
Would.
gone, just some big kind of theme park in its place. Everyone going and saying, sure there used to be a palace there. And I'll be going, no, never a palace here. It's just a Mandela.
It's a lizard-themed theme park, and you get to go on a roller coaster, and it's shaped like a giant lizard's tail, and you do the loop-de-loop around it, and you're going down the slide, and
it's owned by Jimmy Savile. Yeah.
You know, they could call that place. They could call it the Viper's Pit.
Yeah, just call it Buckingham. It's the same thing in Latin, and Buckingham Palace means layers of reptiles.
I don't know if I would want to go to a theme park owned by Jimmy Savile. Just saying.
Well,
Yeah, you might
I don't
get
think
bad
that'd be
things happen to
exactly.
him.
No, then. How about that then? I tell you, dodgy dude. But we are out of time, and at 3 a.m. in the morning, I am almost out of juice. Yes, indeed, it's been a blast. It's been great. Been back on for a simulcast again. I missed you all, and I know you missed laughing at my silly little expressions. You got Andy's face this week, no Scott. He didn't realise we were back on camera. He's actually sitting naked right now. So all the Scott fans out there, all you ladies, don't get too excited. I know, but did he not tell us, Andy? He can't go on camera. There's nobody there. And he's naked. That's it. He's just...
That's okay. That's all good.
If I didn't have the camera on, I'd be doing it naked and all. Naked podcast. That'd be the next
How do you
thing.
know I'm not wearing pants right now? Just stand up real quick. No, I'm just kidding.
You see, half the time I do my show, and if it's a big guest, I've got the shirt on and I've just got shorts on the bottom. I look like an absolute reprobate. But nobody sees my bottom half, so who cares? It's all good. So next time you see me with a shirt on, folks, you're all going to be thinking, has he got trousers on? That's the big question. And until next time, keep it real. You know what's coming now. Boom. Keep your mind open. Keep looking for the woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo.